Chapter 23. The sun had set. The sunset glow was still burning in the sky. Looking at the mountains in the distance, they were covered with a thick layer of ash that was slowly turning black. In the academy, the day's lessons had ended. The students walked out in twos and threes. Today was really a happy day. I learned a lot of things, especially learning how to use the moonlight goo. The moonblade flying in the air is so cool. Too bad I don't have enough talent. In the future, I can only be a logistics goo master and can't go to the battlefield. The youths talked with great interest. Some people called their friends. Let's go eat together and drink some rice wine. How about it? Okay, that's a good suggestion. You guys go first. I have to go to the shop near the academy's goo room to buy a grass puppet so I can practice at home. Fang Yuan came to the goo room alone. The academy's goo room stored many rank 1 goo worms of various types. Fang Yuan's moonlight goo was chosen from there for free. Every once in a while, the students would have a chance to get a goo worm for free. If they wanted to get additional goo worms, they had to pay. Fang Yuan did not have the intention to refine other goo worms in the short term. He walked to the shop next to the goo room. It was a small shop. There were 7 students in the shop, bargaining with the shop owner for grass puppets. Its junior brother. The rank 1 goo master in charge of the shop was in his 20s. After seeing Fang Yuan, he did his business and took the initiative to greet Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was surprised. This goo master was Jiangya, the young goo master who taught the hunters in the inn a lesson. Oh, it's senior. Fang Yuan nodded, his face expressionless. Jiangya took out a grass puppet from the counter behind him and handed it to a student who was buying it. He smiled at Fang Yuan in a friendly manner and asked, Junior, are you here to buy grass puppets too? Do I need to save one for you? Only 3 yuan stone. This thing sells very fast. Now there are only 7 left. If you wait any longer, there will be no more stock. He had an arrogant attitude towards mortals, but towards Fang Yuan and the others, he was very friendly. Fang Yuan shook his head, laughing in his heart. This Jiangya really knows how to do business. The grass puppet was made from the grassman goo. Including the input of primeval essence, the cost was only 1.5 yuan stone. Senior, that's not very nice of you. First come, first served. Why should we leave it for him? That's right. We've been here for a long time. You have to follow the rules when doing business. 3 pieces it is. You can have the yuan stone, and I'll have the puppet. When the youths in the shop heard that there were only 7 puppets left, they became anxious. They stopped bargaining and took out their yuan stone to buy the puppets. Soon, the 7 of them left with satisfaction. Junior brother, do you want to buy a grass puppet? Jiangya asked with a smile. They said that they were just sold out, but there is actually an 8th one. If junior brother doesn't buy it, then you'll miss a good opportunity. Fang Yuan had no interest in the grass puppet. He shook his head and took out a yuan stone, putting it on the counter. I want to buy 10 moon orchid petals. Jiangya stared blankly at Fang Yuan. He took away the yuan stone and pulled open the drawer of the counter. He took out a paper bag. 10 moon orchid petals, not one less. You can count them. Fang Yuan checked it in person. Finding that there were no mistakes, he left the small shop. Goo worms need to be fed. Goo masters refine and use goo, and at the same time, they also need to raise goo. Refining goo is difficult, and there is the danger of backlash. Using goo is not easy and requires a lot of practice. The knowledge of raising goo is even more extensive and profound. Because there are all kinds of goo worms, their food is also different. Some need to swallow soil, some need starlight, some need to drink tears, and some need to absorb the clouds of the 9 heavens. Take the 3 goo worms that Fang Yuan had now, for example. The moonlight goo needs to swallow moon orchid petals twice a day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening, and each meal has 2 petals. As for the liquor worm, it needs to drink wine. A jar of green bamboo wine can support it for 4 days. The spring-autumn cicada is even more peculiar. It can directly drink water from the river of time to maintain its vitality. The river of time supports the operation of this world. It is not far away in the sky, but close at hand, flowing by everyone's side. Every action of all living beings requires the impetus of time. Time is like flowing water, passing by quickly. The river of time is invisible and colorless, and all living beings actually live and exist in the river of time. After buying this bag of moon orchid petals, Fang Yuan went to the inn to buy green bamboo wine. The liquor worm can also drink some wine and rice wine to survive. But once it is this kind of inferior wine, the amount it drinks is huge, and it needs a few jars every day. Fang Yuan calculated, it is better to buy green bamboo wine directly. Not only is it more cost-effective than buying inferior wine, it will also not arouse suspicion. "Young master, you are here." The inn's waiter already knew Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan directly threw 3 pieces of yuan stone to him and said with familiarity, "Give me a jar of green bamboo wine, and give me a few good dishes. No need for change, put it here first, and at the end of the month we will settle it all together. Any overpayment will be refunded, any shortfall will be made up." Although he no longer lives in the inn, but moved to the school dormitory. But every time he buys wine, he will eat here. "Okay, young master, please sit here. The wine and dishes will be ready soon." The waiter responded and led Fang Yuan to a seat. He took out the rag on his shoulder, politely wiped the table and stools, and then left. As the waiter said, the wine and dishes were quickly served. Fang Yuan ate while calculating in his heart, 1 yuan stone can buy 10 petals, and the moonlight goo consumes 4 every day. 1 jar of green bamboo wine is worth 2 yuan stone and can support the liquor worm for 4 days. That is to say, just feeding these 2 goo will consume nearly 1 yuan stone every day. This may seem small, but it is actually very expensive. For a mortal family of 3, a month's living expenses are only 1 yuan stone. Since refining the goo until now, it has been 16 days. Just raising the goo cost Fang Yuan 5 yuan stones. I got the flower wine inheritance, took away Fang Jing's bag of yuan stones, and got the first prize. My yuan stone assets were as high as 5 yuan stones. But refining the goo used 5 yuan stones, feeding it took 5 yuan stones, and half a yuan stone for living expenses. Now I should be left with 20 yuan stones. Fang Yuan took out his money bag and opened it. The bag was filled with pieces of yuan stone. These yuan stones were grayish-white in color, each oval, the same volume, and the size of a duck's egg. Counting, there were really only 20 yuan stones left. That is to say, without any income, the yuan stone Fang Yuan had left was only enough for him to last for half a month. He was not like other people of the same age, who more or less had friends and relatives to help them. Especially students like Gu Mabe and Gu Cheng. There was no shortage of yuan stone, and Fang Yuan could only think of a way himself. Uncle and aunt have already cut off my living expenses, but every weekend, the family academy will give out 3 yuan stone as a subsidy to the students. Looks like I should perform well in the Moonblade assessment 3 days later and get the 10 yuan stone as a reward. Fang Yuan chewed on his food as he thought. At his age, his body was growing. Unknowingly, all the food had fallen into his stomach. Picking up the unopened green bamboo wine, Fang Yuan lifted his feet and walked out of the inn. "Young master, young master." The shop assistant behind him chased after him. "Let me tell young master something. In less than a month, there will be a caravan coming to the village. According to the usual practice, they will buy our green bamboo wine. Young master loves green bamboo wine and will buy a few jars every week. The shopkeeper instructed me to tell young master about this. Our green bamboo wine is limited, and after selling it to the caravan, I'm afraid there won't be much left." "Is that so?" Fang Yuan heard this and frowned slightly. Fang Yuan had 500 years of experience in reading people and deciphering words. The shop assistant and the young Gu master Jiangye said similar things, but Fang Yuan could naturally tell that Jiangye was lying, and the shop assistant was telling the truth. This was a bit troublesome. Fang Yuan needed to feed the liquor worm, and in the long run, the amount of green bamboo wine needed was very large. If this inn was out of stock, he was afraid that in the future he would have to use a lot of inferior wine to feed the liquor worm. He could not drink several jars of wine in a day, and after a long time, it would arouse suspicion. After thinking for a while, Fang Yuan took out 10 yuan stone, then buy another 5 jars and let me take them. "Come with me to the academy dormitory." "Yes, young master." The shop assistant quickly took the yuan stone. If there was no storage method, the moon orchid petals could only be stored for 5 days, so Feng Yuan only bought one bag at a time. But green bamboo wine could be stored for a long time, so there was no problem in this aspect. A few shop assistants followed Feng Yuan into the academy dormitory, placed the wine jars under the bed, and left. Looking at the suddenly deflated money bag in his hand, Feng Yuan sighed. Refining gu was hard, and raising gu was not easy. This was because he had 500 years of experience from his previous life. He did not need to practice using gu worms, which meant that the consumption of primeval essence was reduced, and this saved him a lot of expenses. Like the people around him, to practice using the moonlight gu, they had to consume primeval essence. To increase proficiency, they had to practice a few times. The consumption of primeval essence was too high, and the recovery was too slow, so they could only use yuan stone to replenish. Buying a grass puppet would cost 3 primeval stones. This was all money. Luckily, my spring-autumn cicada consumes time, and not other food. Otherwise, I would have gone bankrupt long ago and could not afford it. Feng Yuan felt very lucky. The higher the level of gu worm, the larger the appetite, or the rarer the food, the harder it was to raise. A rank 2 ordinary gu worm would consume 1 to 2 primeval stones a day. It was still good to be able to buy food. Some gu worms' food was especially hard to find, and the market simply did not have such goods. Just like the spring-autumn cicada's food was time, which was even more precious. As the saying goes, an inch of gold cannot buy an inch of time. No matter how much money you have, can you buy time? You can't. In theory, there was no limit to the number of gu a gu master could refine. As long as you could refine, 10, 100, or even 1,000 would do. You could refine however many gu you wanted to refine. But in fact, a gu master usually only had 4 or 5 gu worms. Why? The biggest reason was that they could not afford to raise them. The higher the rank of the gu worm, the more expensive it was to feed it. This often caused gu masters to be strapped for cash, giving them a headache. Another reason was that they could not afford to use it. Activating the moonlight gu, one moonblade attack would consume 10% of primeval essence. A C-grade gu master could only launch 3 to 4 attacks, and the primeval essence in his aperture would be used up. No matter how many gu worms you raised, if you could not use them, wouldn't it all be a waste? Thus, there was a saying in gu master cultivation. Raising gu was like raising a mistress. To raise a mistress, one had to buy food, clothes, a house, and so on. It was very expensive, and raising too many would cost too much. Normal people could not afford it. Even if they could raise so many, a man's energy was limited, and he could not afford it. Was he going to raise it for nothing? The gu master's realm increased, but the gu worm's food standard also increased. Thus, don't think that gu masters had no limit to the number of gu they could refine. Most gu masters would only raise 4 or 5 gu worms of the same rank. If the number was any higher, the gu master would go bankrupt. Chapter 24. 3 days later. Lowering your body to dodge is a common technique to restrain swinging punches. When the enemy attacks, quickly crouch down and take the opportunity to counterattack, attacking his crotch and stomach. Don't be afraid of swinging punches. Those who often use swinging punches are brainless and impulsive people. On the training field, the Academy's boxing instructor spoke as he demonstrated the moves. A wooden puppet swept its right fist over. The boxing instructor crouched down and dodged the attack, then punched the puppet's stomach. After a few punches, the wooden puppet fell to the ground. The students gathered in a circle to watch, but most of them could not raise their spirits, showing a lack of interest. The Academy taught many kinds of courses, and this class was teaching the basics of boxing. Using fists and legs to exert strength was much inferior to the cool moonblade attacks. The youths were almost distracted. The next class is the Moonlight Gu's usage test. How's your training recently? Not bad. I can use all 3 moonblades, but rarely can I hit all of them. Usually, there are 2 hits on the grass puppet. About the same as me. These days, in order to practice this, I bought a grass puppet. The youths were whispering, their minds were no longer here, they were all worried about the next class's test. For this test, they had trained hard for a long time after class. Now they were all full of energy, looking forward to the test. The students' discussion entered the instructor's ears. The boxing instructor turned around and shouted, talking is forbidden in class. All of you shut up and watch carefully. He was a rank 2 Gu master. His body was muscular, his upper body was strong, and his bronze skin was covered with scars. His shout was majestic, immediately suppressing all the youths in the field. The martial arts practice field was silent. The basics of boxing is the most important. Especially in the early stages of a Gu master's cultivation, it is more important than anything else. All of you focus. After a round of reprimanding, the martial arts instructor summoned another wooden puppet. This light yellow wooden puppet was 2 meters tall, and when its wooden feet stepped on the blue stone floor, it made a crisp sound. It opened its arms and clumsily rushed towards the instructor. The instructor dodged its attack, then suddenly hugged its waist and pushed it forward, pushing the wooden puppet to the ground. Then, he rode on the wooden puppet's waist and quickly punched the wooden puppet's head. The wooden puppet resisted for a moment before its head was smashed by the instructor's rain-like fists. It lay paralyzed on the ground, motionless. The martial arts instructor stood up. His breath was still calm and long. He explained to the students, "Don't be afraid when facing a tall enemy in close combat. Destroying the opponent's center of gravity is a wise tactic to control the enemy. Just like what I did just now, I grabbed the enemy's waist, controlled his hip bone, and pushed him forward. After that, he would ride on the opponent's body and punch them fiercely. Those who have no intention of defending will instantly collapse." The students nodded repeatedly, but most of their gazes were filled with disapproval. The head instructor saw everything and smiled bitterly in his heart. It had always been like this in the past. Young people were naturally easily attracted by gorgeous things. Without personal experience, it was difficult for the youngsters to understand the importance of basic punches and kicks. In fact, especially to early-stage Gu masters, basic punches and kicks may seem inconspicuous, but they are more important than moonblade attacks. Remember, in close combat, don't just stare at the enemy's eyes, but pay attention to their shoulders. Whether the enemy punches or kicks, their shoulders will move first. Speed is very important in close combat. The speed here is not the speed of the attack, but the speed of the feet. Distance is the best defense. Legs need to be flexible, that way it will be easier to explode with power. When moving and punching, maintain a triangular support. Otherwise, if you lose control of your lower body, the enemy will not fall, but you will fall instead. The martial arts instructor explained patiently as he demonstrated. This was the precious experience he had accumulated through long periods of battles, using blood and tears. It was a pity that the students outside did not realize this. They gradually started to whisper to each other again. The focus of their discussion was still on the Moonblade assessment in the next lesson. This martial arts instructor is very practical, but there's a problem with his teaching method. Fang Yuan watched quietly from the crowd, nodding and shaking his head. This instructor's teaching was not methodical. It was purely out of interest, teaching whatever he wanted to teach. Thus, the things he taught were messy, many, and complicated. Many students listened attentively at first, but gradually lost interest and shifted their attention to other aspects. Only Fang Yuan listened attentively. Others were learning, but he was revising. His battle experience was much richer than the martial arts instructors, but listening to someone else's explanation was also a form of cultivation verification. Gu Master's fighting style was usually divided into close combat and long range. The Moonblade attack was the long-range type, but strictly speaking, it could only be considered mid to long range, because its attack range was only 10 meters. If it was a close combat Gu Master, this martial arts instructor was the best example. They would usually choose a Gu worm that could amplify their body and carry out cultivation. These Gu worms gave them strength, agility, reaction, endurance, and so on that surpassed normal people. Just like this martial arts instructor, his skin was bronze in color. This was not his natural skin color, but the effect of a copper skin Gu. The copper skin Gu would greatly increase the defense of the Gu Master's skin, allowing the Gu Master to take more damage. One Moonblade consumes 10% of primeval essence. How many times can a Gu Master use it in battle? The number of times is very few, especially for novices. It cannot form an effective attack. It can only be used as a trump card. Its deterrence is greater than its destructive power. To a rank 1 Gu Master, what is useful is still martial arts. because martial arts attacks last longer and are more reliable. It's a pity that they have not experienced this personally, so they don't know. Fang Yuan used his gaze to glance at his peers around him, and his lips curled into a cold smile. The basic martial arts class finally ended. After a short break, the academy elder arrived late under the anticipating gazes of the youths. He waved his hand, pointing at the row of grass puppets under the bamboo wall, and went straight to the point. All right, today is the day to check the results. You guys form a group of 5, come up one by one, and use the moonblade to attack 3 times. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The first group of students walked up, the moonblades dancing in the air. After 3 rounds, only 9 moonblades hit the grass puppets. The academy elder shook his head slightly, somewhat dissatisfied. This hit rate was too low, and the key was that out of the 5, 2 of them only managed to use 2 moonblades. You guys have to practice well from now on, especially you, and you. The elder reprimanded them slightly and waved his hand. Next group. The 2 who were reprimanded walked down the stage dejectedly. One of the young girl's eyes were red, feeling wronged. She only had C-grade talent, and she could not bear to use Yuan Stone to recover her primeval essence quickly. Thus, she did not practice much these 3 days, causing her to not be familiar with using the moonblade. Gu masters needed money to refine Gu, to raise Gu, and to practice using Gu also needed money. But where did she get so much money? Although she had the support of her parents, every family had their own difficulties. Being short of money was a common predicament for Gu masters. Since I have no hope of getting first, I might as well give up and save Yuan Stone. Isn't that better? Thinking of this, the young girl calmed down. There were many who had the same thoughts as the young girl. Because of the lack of practice, many students performed poorly. The academy elder's brows furrowed even deeper. Fang Yuan saw this and shook his head in his heart. These people are so pitiful and pitiful. For some Yuan Stone, they gave up on the chance to improve themselves. Yuan Stone is for use, like a miser saving Yuan Stone. Why did they become a Gu master? In other words, only the short-sighted would haggle over every penny, often neglecting the essentials. On the other hand, those with lofty ambitions were usually able to display a magnanimous and forgiving attitude. It's finally my turn. At this time, Gu Mabe's horse walked onto the stage with a confident smile on its face. His body was sturdy and emitted a valiant aura. After standing still, he raised his hand and released 3 moonblades, all 3 hitting. 2 of them hit the puppet's chest, and 1 hit the puppet's left arm, cutting off a few green grass pieces. Such a result naturally attracted a wave of praise from the youths. Not bad. The elder's brows relaxed slightly. Another group came up, and one of them was Gu Yuecheng. Gu Yuecheng was short, his face full of pockmarks, and his expression showed slight nervousness. He consecutively released 3 moonblades, all hitting the puppet's chest, leaving 3 crisscrossing scars. The scars turned from deep to shallow, and after a few breaths, because of the grass puppet's self-healing, it returned to its original appearance. But such a performance was already on par with Gu Mabe, and received the elder's praise as well. Chicheng held his head high as he walked down the stage, giving Mabe a provocative look on the way. Off the stage, Gu Mabe snorted coldly, but he did not stare back at Chicheng, instead looking at Gu Fangjing, who had yet to go on stage. He was clear that the only ones who posed a threat were Gu Yuecheng and Gu Fangjing. The former was the same as him, a B-grade talent, and had a constant supply of Yuan Stone. The latter was an A-grade talent, and even though the Yuan Stone wasn't as abundant as theirs, relying on the recovery speed of his qi, he could still practice a lot in a short period of time. Now that Gu Yuecheng's result was out, and he was on par with Mabe, only Gu Fangjing was left. In the last few groups, Gu Fangjing finally went on stage. Chapter 25. Is he Fang Yuan or Fangjing? Some of the students muttered. There were still some who couldn't tell the difference between Fang Yuan and Fangjing, the twins. It's Fangjing. Fang Yuan always has a cold expression on his face. There's never a nervous expression on his face. Someone answered. Oh, then there's something to see. Fangjing is the only A-grade prodigy in our stronghold in the past 3 years. Everyone looked at him. Fangjing could feel the pressure from their gazes, which made him even more nervous. Standing in the arena, his fingers were trembling slightly. His first crescent blade was originally aimed at the chest of the straw puppet, but because of his nervousness, he missed. In the end, the crescent blade landed on the straw puppet's neck. The youths immediately let out soft gasps of surprise. They thought that Fangjing had done it on purpose, not aiming for the straw puppet's chest, which was the easiest to hit, but the neck. This was a sign that he was confident in his attacking technique. They couldn't help but look forward to Fangjing's next performance even more. Guyue Mabe and Guyue Chengqing's expressions darkened. The only ones who could see that Fangjing had made a mistake were the Academy Elder and Fang Yuan. That was close. Seeing this crescent blade, Fangjing exclaimed in his heart, secretly feeling that he was lucky. He took a few deep breaths, forced himself to calm down, and released 2 more crescent blades. This time, he didn't make a mistake, and both crescent blades hit the straw puppet's chest accurately. This result made the Academy Elder nod his head, while Mabe and Qicheng calmed down. Fangjing's result was on par with theirs, and it was up to the Academy Elder to grade. The other students let out sighs of disappointment. Fangjing's subsequent performance was not outstanding, and they were slightly disappointed. There was nothing interesting about the next few groups. No one could perform better than Mabe, Qicheng, and Fangjing. The youths began to whisper to each other. It seems that the first place in today's assessment will be decided between the 3 of them. All 3 of them hit the straw puppet. I wonder who the elder will favor. Wait, it's the last group. Fang Yuan is up. Oh, you mean that cold genius of the C grade? Hee. Until the last group, Fang Yuan went up on stage. It's that Fang Yuan. Gu Mabe looked up at Fang Yuan, then lowered his eyes, not paying much attention to him. Last time, you got lucky and accidentally chose a weak-willed moonlight Gu, which allowed you to get first place. Let's see how you perform this time. Gu Yu Qicheng crossed his arms, waiting to see Fang Yuan make a fool of himself. Brother, this time is not the same as last time. I've trained hard for so long, I can definitely surpass you. In the crowd, Guyue Fangjing pursed his lips, his fists clenched tightly. Last time in the assessment to refine the vital Gu, he got second place with his great aptitude, so naturally he was not convinced. Especially when he understood the reason for Fang Yuan's victory, it was because of his good luck that he got first place. This made him even more dissatisfied. To Guyue Fangjing, winning against his brother Fang Yuan had a special meaning to him. Many gazes were focused on Fang Yuan. Even the Academy Elder was looking at him. Fang Yuan was unmoved, his expression cold. After he stood still, he channeled his primeval essence into the moonlight Gu in his palm, and with a wave of his hand, he released the first moonblade. The moonblade flew high, not only over the straw puppet's head, but also above the bamboo wall. After flying for about 15 meters, the light dimmed and disappeared into the air. Some people could not help but laugh. That's too far off. Some people laughed coldly. He's indeed a genius. No wonder he got first place in refining Gu. Some people said sarcastically. In the early years, when Fang Yuan created poems and displayed his early wisdom, these people were dissatisfied. Later on, he got first place in refining Gu with luck. Adding to their dissatisfaction was jealousy. Many people were waiting to watch a good show, waiting for the genius Fang Yuan to make a fool of himself, and Fang Yuan's moonblade did not disappoint them. The crowd burst into laughter. The Academy Elder shook his head slightly, laughing at himself in his heart. Why did he pay attention to Fang Yuan for no reason? He was only a C grade, and only got first place in refining Gu because of a moment of luck. He had already made up his mind. Although Mabe, Qicheng, and Fangjing's results were the same, he would choose Fangjing as first place. The battle between Guyue Mabe and Guyue City was the epitome of the political struggle between the 2 powerful elders in the clan. The Academy Elder had always been in the middle and did not want to get involved in the political whirlpool. The Academy Elder was more inclined towards the clan leader, Guyue Bo, while Fangjing was on the clan leader's side. Furthermore, he had an A-grade aptitude, so choosing him as first place was somewhat biased towards him and could be accepted by the clan's higher-ups. A warm spring breeze blew, and the fragrance of flowers floated into the battle arena. The sunlight shone on Fang Yuan's body, casting a lonely shadow on the ground. His expression was still cold, quietly looking at the straw puppet 10 meters away, the moonblade imprint in the center of his hand emitting a faint blue light. The first moonblade was of course purposely missed by him. Now, he only had 2 chances left, and considering the Academy Elder's standpoint, if he wanted to get first place, he had to create an effect that far surpassed everyone else's attack. There are only 2 chances left, it's impossible. Brother, I finally won. Gue Fangjing's eyes stared unblinkingly at Fang Yuan. Since young, the shadow that his brother had cast in his life was finally fading away at this moment. Fangjing felt that victory was close at hand, and subconsciously clenched his fists, his whole body trembling slightly with excitement. Brother, winning you this time is only the beginning. Next, I will win you again and again, until the shadow in my heart is completely removed. I want to prove to the clan the excellence of an A-grade prodigy, Fangjing said to himself in his heart. But at this moment, Fang Yuan made his move. His right palm was like a knife, chopping through the air. With a soft sound, the blue light that enveloped his palm broke free, flew into the air, and turned into a blue moonblade, shooting towards the straw puppet. In the next second, Fang Yuan's right palm lit up with a layer of blue light again. With a flip of his palm, he chopped out the third moonblade. His 2 attacks were connected smoothly and perfectly. The 2 moonblades flew out one after the other and were less than half a meter apart in the air. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the 2 moonblades accurately hit the straw puppet's neck. Fangjing's pupils shrank, and he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. In the next moment, the students had a shocked expression and slowly opened their mouths wide. They saw the straw puppet's head slowly tilt to one side, then fall from its neck, and finally fall to the ground, bouncing once and rolling a distance of 2 to 3 meters. Fang Yuan had chopped off its head. This result was out of everyone's expectations. Is this luck or skill? The Academy Elder frowned. The same doubt also circled in the hearts of the rest of the students. For a moment, the martial arts arena fell into silence. How could this be? Fangjing murmured, and he stared blankly at Fang Yuan. The surging emotions in his heart suddenly disappeared, and he fell into a deep valley. Fang Yuan narrowed his eyes, as if he didn't notice the gazes of the crowd on him. Coo, coo, coo. Under the blue sky and white clouds, a flock of colorful parrots suddenly flapped their wings and flew into the air. They dragged their beautiful and slender tails, cooing as they flew in circles in the air. Fang Yuan stood in the middle of the martial arts arena and looked up. Under the bright sunlight, the colorful feathers of the birds were even more dazzling. His expression was calm, as if he wasn't the one who had just chopped off the straw puppet's head. The spring sun is really bright. He sighed in his heart. Chapter 26. It was close to evening, and the setting sun was like blood. The afterglow shone on the academy, and more than 50 students sat upright. On the stage, the Academy Elder was reading out the names one by one, distributing the allowance. This was the Yuan stone allowance that the Academy gave out every 7 days, as a form of financial aid for these youths. After all, with their strength, to feed their own gu worms was a huge financial burden. Gu Yue, Fang Yuan. The Elder read. Fang Yuan stood up from the last row by the window, walking up to the stage and receiving the 2 money bags. In one bag, there were 3 Yuan stones as the clan allowance. The other bag had 10 Yuan stones as a reward. Work hard. The Elder looked deeply at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan had obtained first place twice in a row, causing the clan elder who was originally disappointed to start paying some attention to him. Fang Yuan nodded, keeping the money bags and returning to his seat. Damn it, he took first place again. Guyue Mo-chan stared at Fang Yuan, feeling indignant. Those 2 moonblades hit the puppet's neck consecutively. Is this his dog shit luck or his true strength? Guyue Mo-chan squinted his eyes. From the end of the exam until now, this question had been lingering in his heart. Not only him, but many of the students' gazes either intentionally or unintentionally drifted towards Fang Yuan. This question tormented them. Even though they had lost, they were still unwilling and wanted to get to the bottom of it. When it was about to end, the Academy Elder announced something. You have all been in the Academy for some time now, and are familiar with the usage of the vital goo. In the following days, I will teach you how to nurture your aperture and raise your goo master's cultivation realm. The higher the goo master's realm, the more condensed their primeval essence. Rank 1 goo masters have green copper primeval essence, rank 2 goo masters have red iron primeval essence, and rank 3 goo masters have white silver primeval essence. 1 portion of red iron primeval essence is equivalent to 10 portions of green copper primeval essence. Similarly, 1 portion of white silver primeval essence is equivalent to 10 portions of red iron primeval essence. You have to remember, goo worms are just tools we use. Cultivation is the foundation of US goo masters. The higher the cultivation, the stronger the goo worm. In the following 3 months, whoever could advance to rank 1 middle stage first would be rewarded with 30 yuan stones, and would also have the right to choose the second goo worm. 3 months later, we will appoint a class monitor and 2 deputy class monitors based on the results. Yuan stone allowance will be 10 yuan stone allowance for the class monitor, and yuan stone allowance for the vice class monitor will be increased to 5 yuan stones. Alright, that's all for today. Everyone, disperse. The elder's words caused the entire academy to buzz. They're going to appoint a class monitor and deputy class monitor. Someone excitedly clenched his fist. The monitor gets 10 yuan stone every 7 days, and the deputy monitor gets 5? If I can be the first to advance to the middle stage of the first job transition, I will definitely become the chairman. Someone's eyes shone brightly. Yuan stone is not the main point. The main point is that the positions of class monitor and deputy monitor represent glory, and their statuses are above everyone else. When ordinary students see the class monitor, they have to bow and greet him. Guyue Mabe, Chicheng and the rest did not lack yuan stone, but they valued this glory very much. Becoming the class monitor, that's right, being the first to advance to the middle stage of the first job transition. Let Big Brother bow and greet me when he sees me in the future. Wait, where's Big Brother? Guyue Fangjing subconsciously looked back, but Fang Yuan's seat was already empty. The students walked out of the academy one after another. Guyue, where's Fang Yuan? Guyue Mabe wanted to find Fang Yuan and ask him face to face, but Fang Yuan had already left a step earlier. He ran pretty fast. Is he afraid? Looks like he got lucky again in today's assessment. Guyue Chung sneered. Forget it, it's just a reward of 10 yuan stone. There's no need to care about this. The most important thing now is to advance to the middle stage and get the position of the class monitor. Guyue Mabe squinted his eyes, looking at Guyue Chung and Guyue Fangjing beside him. These two were his real opponents. As for Fang Yuan, he was just a C-grade talent. He was not enough. The first 2 assessments, Fang Yuan was lucky enough to get first place. But this time's assessment only focuses on cultivation talent. If one's talent is 1 grade higher, the advantage is huge. Guyue Chung felt depressed. His real talent was only C grade. It was only because he cheated that he gave the false impression of being B grade. A position of the class monitor and 2 positions of the vice class monitor are enough to make them rub their fists. What a hot-blooded and naive age. Fang Yuan leaned against the entrance of the academy, laughing coldly in his heart. The so-called glory was just a value tool used by the superior to motivate the subordinates. In the end, it was just a layer of illusory halo. What use was it? With 500 years of life experience, Fang Yuan had long understood the mystery behind it. Whether it's a family, a sect, or a demonic cult, whether it's this world or Earth, any organization is the same. Setting up a high and low position, clearly defining the promotion method, allows the people in the organization to continuously climb up from a low position. Because it's human nature to chase after profits, and power often gives people the illusion that they are superior to others, that their lives are more valuable than others. The word power is like a carrot dangling in front of a donkey. People are stimulated by it, one after another, trying to curry favor. After climbing up a level, there's an even higher level. Little do they know, in the process of currying favor, their labor is squeezed, and the value they produce is exploited by the superior. All organizations, as long as they have a subordinate relationship, serve the superior. The so-called class monitor and vice class monitor are the smallest carrot. luring others into the family system. And in order to prevent the inferior from seeing through this truth, the superior often unifies the values, clearly defining the concepts of glory, merit, and so on, setting up high and low positions, unequal benefits, or using religion to rule the hearts of people. This is the truth, but unfortunately, most people in the world don't understand, foolishly working hard for others. And all the organizations in the world, the most fundamental essence is only one, and that is the redistribution of resources. The higher the level, the more resources they can enjoy. In his previous life, Feng Yuan founded the Bloodwing demonic cult in the central continent, teaching tens of thousands of people. He also set up the positions of demonic soldier, demonic general, and so on, and gave corresponding benefits, causing countless people to flock to them and be ordered around by Feng Yuan. This kind of experience allowed him to have a clear understanding of the Tao. So, any organization is just a facade. The real foundation is only one word: resources. Without resources to eat, they will starve to death. Without resources to drink, they will die of thirst. Without resources to cultivate, they will be weak, and sooner or later, they will be bullied to death. And Yuan stone is the most important resource for a Gu master's cultivation. Feng Yuan's eyes were as deep as a serene lake. Thinking of this, the corner of his mouth curled up, forming a cold smile. He had left the academy early, and now stood at the academy's entrance, seeing the first batch of students walking out, gradually approaching him. It's Feng Yuan. What is he doing blocking the entrance? Humph. Every time I see him like this, I get annoyed. Don't mind him. He's probably waiting for someone. The youngsters did not mind, and just as they were about to walk over, Feng Yuan took a step forward, blocking them. This is a robbery. Everyone hand over a piece of Yuan stone, and you can leave. Chapter 27. The youths were both shocked and furious. What? Did I hear that right? Feng Yuan, have you lost your mind? How dare you stand in front of the academy's gate and blackmail us? Have you gone mad from poverty? Who gave you the guts to set your sights on us? Get lost. You're just a third-grade martial artist, and you dare to block my way? If you don't scram, I'll send you flying with a kick. Ugh. Feng Yuan suddenly attacked. He formed a palm with his right hand and ruthlessly chopped down. His movements were accurate and fast, and the lower edge of his palm struck the left side of a person's neck. How could this unfortunate youth have expected Feng Yuan to suddenly attack him? Just as he was cursing, he suddenly suffered a heavy blow. His eyes rolled back and he fainted on the spot. Fuck, you really dare to make a move? The crowd was in an uproar, and the youth subconsciously took a step back. Guyue, Northern Giant has fainted. What do we do? Someone shouted in alarm and fear. What else can we do? There are so many of us, but Feng Yuan is alone. Let's rush over and give him a good beating. Someone shouted, exploding with anger. That's right. He doesn't know what's good for him and dares to challenge us alone. He must have eaten the guts of a leopard. Everyone, attack together. However, before they could do anything, Feng Yuan had already made his move. He took a few steps forward and rushed into the crowd first. His palm slashed diagonally, chopping a youth's neck. The youth rolled his eyes and collapsed. Ah! A young man shouted and swung his fist at Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan lowered his body and dodged, raising his leg and kicking this person's crotch. Ah! The youth's shout was originally loud and passionate, but after being struck by this attack, the pitch of his voice suddenly rose, becoming sharp and sharp, filled with misery and pain. Plop. He covered his crotch with both hands, and his knees went soft. He knelt on the ground and rolled on the ground, screaming and screaming. The pain made him break out in a cold sweat. Feng Yuan raised his palms, like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. He had 500 years of battle experience, and these youths were just a bunch of newbies who had just started cultivating. How could they be a match for him? In the blink of an eye, this group of youths were all taken down by Feng Yuan. All of them either fainted or lay on the ground. They were in so much pain that they sucked in a breath of cold air. What's going on? Guyue Mabe arrived a step later and exclaimed. He saw Feng Yuan standing at the entrance of the academy, and 5 or 6 students lying around him. Fang Yuan, he wants to extort us for our yuan stone. A youth who was lying on the ground, clutching his stomach, shouted angrily, quite energetic. Fang Yuan's expression was calm as he kicked the youth's abdomen. Woo! The youth immediately screamed in pain, his body curling up like a shrimp. A look of fear appeared on his face. Tears and mucus flowed down his face, and he no longer dared to speak carelessly. Seeing this scene, the youths who rushed over all felt Fang Yuan's cruelty, and their hearts palpitated. All right, all of you obediently hand over a piece of yuan stone, and I will let you go. Otherwise, you will end up like these people on the ground. Fang Yuan took a big step forward, his voice cold. Bullshit. You're just a mere C grade, and you want to defeat me, a B grade? Guyue Mabe was enraged. He raised his fist and rushed towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's ankle turned slightly, and he lightly leaned to the side, dodging his fist. Then he stretched out his left hand, raised his index and middle finger, and accurately poked the center of the Mabe's collarbone, below his throat. The Mabe's vision immediately turned black, and with a plop, he fell to the ground and fainted. Hiss! Seeing this scene, the youths who still wanted to charge forward all gasped, and their momentum came to a halt. Fang Yuan's attack, in the eyes of these youths, suddenly became profound and unfathomable. The fact that they did not pay attention to basic fist and leg techniques was vaguely mentioned in class. The human body had many weak parts, and the few parts that Fang Yuan attacked were some of them. If these parts were attacked, it would cause a person to faint on the spot, and if it was serious, it would be life-threatening. But Fang Yuan knew when to stop. Those who were knocked down by him either fainted or felt intense pain, and temporarily lost the ability to fight. None of them were seriously injured. This was the terror of 500 years of battle experience. Hand it over, or not. Fang Yuan took a step forward and forced the other youths. The youths looked at each other, then gritted their teeth or roared, and rushed towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan dodged and attacked at the same time. His cultivation level was low, but it was still there. His heart was as calm as ice, and his movements were fast and accurate. Plop, plop. After a few breaths, another group of youths fell to the ground. Too cruel. Too scary. Don't tell me they're dead. There were still a few girls who did not rush forward. Their eyes were wide open, and seeing this scene, their bodies trembled more and more. Fang Yuan's gaze swept across them, and their beautiful faces paled. They hurriedly waved their hands and retreated. Don't come over. We'll hand it over. We'll hand it over. Fang Yuan took a few yuan stones and let them go. They stumbled out of the academy's main gate, and more students came over. To leave the academy, this main gate was the only way. If Fang Yuan blocked this gate, he would be able to block all the students. Damn, what happened? The youths widened their eyes in shock. Isn't that Guyue Mabe? Guyue Cheng looked at the unconscious Mabe on the ground and was dumbfounded. Fang Yuan opened his mouth to speak, and the youths were instantly enraged. They attacked and then fell. Master Elder, are we just going to keep watching and not stop him? What if someone dies? How are we going to clean up this mess? The guards' faces were full of worry, but some of the guards were furious. This Fang Yuan, he is too daring. You actually dared to blackmail your classmate right in front of our eyes, right in front of the academy's main gate. He is simply lawless. As long as Master gives the order, I will take him down. Fang Yuan blocking the academy's main gate and publicly admitting that he was a violent act of blackmailing his classmates had already attracted attention from the start. But the mortal guards did not have the authority to punish the students and could only report to the academy elder first. When the academy elder heard the news, he did not immediately give the order to stop him, but went up to the pavilion and observed from afar. Seems like this child has a talent for battle. The academy elder was getting more and more interested as he watched. Fang Yuan's performance in using the crescent blade had already attracted the elder's suspicions, and now he was able to single-handedly fight against an entire group of students with the elegance of someone who dominated the battlefield. The doubts in his heart were solved. In this world, there were some people who were especially sensitive to battle, and this was a hidden talent. They were good at fighting and loved to fight. In battle, they would often be inspired. They would often create shocking and even unimaginable results. This child is a natural battle Gu master. Unfortunately, his aptitude is only C grade, and he is still lacking by a level. The Academy elder sighed. Master, are you not going to stop this farce? If we let him continue like this, I'm afraid it won't be a good influence. The guards beside him all had an anxious look on their faces. Chapter 28. Why should I stop him? The Academy elder raised his eyebrows and laughed. He stretched out his finger and pointed at Feng Yuan, saying, This kid already has control of the entire situation and knows when to stop. Look at how he slashes at people's necks. He only slashes at the left and right sides, never at the back of the head or neck. This is because he knows that slashing at the left and right side of the neck can cause people to faint on the spot. But slashing at the back of the head and neck can cause death, so he gave up on this method of attack. Look at all these youngsters on the ground. Which one of them is heavily injured? None. So what if they are heavily injured? With our Academy's healing Gu masters, can't they heal this kind of injury? But Lord Elder, this kid is too arrogant. He is blocking the entrance and does not even put us guards in his eyes. It is fine if we are ignored, but the key is how the clansmen will look at our Academy. They actually allowed a small C-grade student to create havoc in the Academy and did not stop him. If this matter spreads, it will affect Lord's reputation. The guard squinted his eyes and said, Humph, it is you who feel that this kid is ignoring you and offending your dignity, right? The Academy elder was displeased and sneered, his sharp gaze sweeping over the guards. All of them lowered their heads. Qi Dao did not dare to. What's wrong with fighting? As long as no lives are lost, it can stimulate the competitive mentality of the students and temper their fighting spirit. If we want to stop this kind of fighting, we will be killing the students' fighting spirit. Were there no fights in the previous years? There were fights every year, and they happened very frequently. But in the past, it happened in the second half of the year. When the youngsters had grasped some fighting techniques and with strength, they could not help but itch to fight. Why did you not stop these people in the past? The Academy elder questioned coldly. Maybe it is because the fights in the previous years were all one-on-one battles and rarely on such a large scale. But this Feng Yuan is really too much of a troublemaker. The guard leader replied, No, no, no. The Academy elder shook his head. This is because you do not dare to stop him. Because in the second half of the year, Gu masters have battle strength that surpasses mortals. What can you, mere mortals, use to stop him? Now you want to stop Feng Yuan. Maybe you feel that he has just started cultivating and does not have enough strength. They also felt that he had disregarded them and offended their dignity. But you must remember, these students' surnames are all Guyue. He is a member of the Guyue clan, your master. No matter how young or weak he is still your master. The elder's tone suddenly turned severe. If your surname isn't Guyue, who do you think you are? Seeing how loyal you are, I gave you the position of a guard and rewarded you with some benefits. But in reality, you are still slaves. He was just a servant. A servant dares to talk nonsense about his master and meddle in his master's affairs? The elder's face was as gloomy as water. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. This subordinate dares not. This subordinate dares not. The guards were so scared that their faces turned ashen. One by one, they knelt on the ground and kowtowed incessantly. The Academy elder snorted coldly and pointed at the head of the guards who had just said that Feng Yuan was too noisy. You talk nonsense about your master. You are stripped of your position as head. After pausing for a moment, the elder said to the others, In half a month's time, a new head will be tested. The eyes of the other guards immediately lit up and their hearts were suddenly filled with excitement. The head of the guards will be able to get half an extra piece of yuan stone every month. To be able to become the head of the guards means that you are a person above others. Apart from the masters, let's see if anyone else dares to give me any face. If I were to become the head of the guards, how glorious would that be? All right, what are you all standing there for? Get the hell down. When the fight is over, go clean up the place. The elder scolded. Yes, yes, yes. This subordinate will take his leave. The guards went down the stairs in fear and trepidation. On the stairs, someone lost his footing and fell down. Immediately, a series of falling sounds could be heard. But because of the Academy Elder's power, the guards' faces were all red. They tried hard to hold it in and did not make any noise. Humph, a servant is like a dog. Every once in a while, the bones all over my body will itch, and I will have to beat them a little to let them know respect. Then I will throw some dog bones for small gains, and let them fight amongst themselves, fighting to give their lives to my clan. As the saying goes, a stick in one hand and a carrot in the other, this is the only way to be in a superior position. The Academy Elder heard the commotion downstairs and laughed coldly in his heart. He turned his head and looked through the window at the Academy entrance. On the ground at the entrance, there were more than 10 new students. Fang Yuan stood proudly with his head held high. Opposite him, there were 3 young girls standing back to back, cowering at the side. You, don't come any closer. If you come any closer, we will shoot you with our moonblades. A layer of blue light appeared on their hands. It looked like they were forced into a corner and actually used their primeval essence to activate the moonlight goo. Fang Yuan's body was still that of an ordinary 15-year-old boy. If they used their moonblades to attack, it would not be easy to handle. But he was not afraid. He laughed coldly in disdain and approached the girls step by step. You all have guts. Have you forgotten the rules of the Academy? The Academy does not allow the use of goo to fight, or else you will be expelled. If you want to be expelled, then go ahead and make your move. The girls hesitated. There is indeed such a rule. The blue light on their hands gradually dissipated. Fang Yuan's eyes flashed. Taking advantage of this opening, he rushed forward and waved his palms, ruthlessly destroying flowers. 2 of them fainted. There was only one left. She lost all will to fight. Her knees went soft and she collapsed on the ground. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain, begging Fang Yuan, don't come any closer. Please let me go. Fang Yuan looked down at the girl from above and said in a cold voice, a piece of Yuan stone. The girl's delicate body trembled, and she suddenly understood. She quickly opened her money pouch and took out 3 or 4 pieces of Yuan stone. Holding them in her hands, she raised them towards Fang Yuan. Don't hit me. I'll give it all to you. I'll give it all to you. Fang Yuan was expressionless. He slowly stretched out his right hand, stretching out his index finger and thumb, and gently pinched a piece of Yuan stone from the girl's hand. The girl's delicate body trembled uncontrollably. Fang Yuan's hand was pale and slender, but in her eyes, it was as sinister and terrifying as a demon's claw. I've said it before. I'll only take 1 piece of Yuan stone. Fang Yuan paused for a moment, then said plainly, you can leave now? The girl stared blankly at Fang Yuan for a while before wanting to get up, but her limbs were soft and she could not even stand up. Her heart was filled with fear towards Fang Yuan, and she was so scared that she could not muster any strength. The Academy Elder saw this and could not help but shake his head. Using this opportunity to discover the individual battle talents of the students was one of the objectives of his observation. Although this girl who was paralyzed on the ground had C-grade aptitude, with such a temperament, she could only be a logistics goo master, working in the clan's production. She could not be expected to be on the battlefield. But this Fang Yuan, the Academy Elder rubbed his chin, his eyes squinting and flashing with brilliance. He felt that this Fang Yuan was really interesting. Not only did he have battle talent, he also knew his limits. Extorting 1 piece of Yuan stone did not cross the bottom line in his heart. But if Fang Yuan wanted to extort 2 pieces, that would be too much, and he would have to interfere. The Academy's allowance was originally only 3 pieces. Extorting 1 piece was not a big deal. But extorting 2 pieces, then what was the point of giving out the allowance? He might as well just give it all to Fang Yuan. Soon, the last batch of students arrived. There were only 5 of them, and one of them was Fang Yuan's twin brother. Brother, how can you do this? You are too daring, actually beating up your classmates at the entrance and extorting Yuan stone from them. Gu Fangjing was dumbstruck. He simply could not believe the scene in front of him. I advise you to quickly admit your mistake to the Academy Elder, otherwise you will cause such a huge commotion. This is not a joke. You might even be expelled. Fang Yuan laughed. You are right. Fang Jing heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that his brother had not gone completely crazy. It was good that he could listen to advice. But soon he heard Fang Yuan say, Everyone, one piece of yuan stone. What? Fang Jing opened his mouth wide in astonishment. Even I have to hand it over? My dear brother, of course you can choose not to hand it over. Fang Yuan's tone was very gentle, but you will end up like them. Fang Yuan pointed at the youths who were either unconscious or groaning on the ground. He won't even let off his own brother. This Fang Yuan is crazy. He is too savage. We can't beat him. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Let's hand it over first to get through this difficult situation. That's right. Hand over the yuan stone first. It's only one piece anyway. When we go back and report it to the teacher, he will suffer. With the previous example, the remaining youths all had indignant looks in their eyes as they obediently accepted Fang Yuan's extortion. Wait a minute. They were just about to leave when they were stopped by Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan, are you going back on your word? The youths suddenly became nervous. Fang Yuan looked at the youths on the ground and sighed softly. Do you think that I will squat down and search their bodies one by one? The youths were stunned for a moment. Then they all came to a realization. Their faces all flushed red as they stood there hesitantly. Fang Yuan stared at them and narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed through his eyes. The 5 youths suddenly felt their hearts palpitate and their scalps go numb at the same time. Okay, Fang Yuan, we understand what you mean. I'll help you this time. Due to Fang Yuan's abuse of power, they could only lower their heads and search the money pouches of the youths on the ground, taking out a piece of yuan stone. Then they gathered them together and handed them to Fang Yuan. There were a total of 57 people in the class, and each of them was extorted and robbed of a piece of yuan stone. Fang Yuan had 56 pieces in his hands. He originally had 20 pieces, but spent 10 to buy a few jars of green bamboo wine. In addition to his own subsidies and rewards, he now had 79 pieces of yuan stone. Robbery and extortion are the most profitable business. Fang Yuan put away the money pouch that had suddenly increased into his clothes and swaggered away. He left behind a group of youths lying on the ground like corpses. There were also a few youths, Fang Jing among them, who stared blankly at Fang Yuan's gradually leaving figure. Quickly go. All of you. Hurry up and settle the little masters properly. Where is the healing goo master? Quickly invite him over. The guards made a big fuss and swarmed forward, competing to show off their abilities. For a small position as the leader, they were full of enthusiasm. Chapter 29. Put the wine under the bed. Fang Yuan commanded the 4 workers of the inn. Each of them held several jars of green bamboo wine in their hands. After Fang Yuan extorted the other students, he came to the inn and bought 20 jars in one go. Each jar cost 2 yuan stone, but Fang Yuan threw out 40 yuan stone for the sake of the liquor worm. The bulging money pouch instantly deflated by half, leaving behind only 39 yuan stone. But it was still worth the money, as these wines could support the liquor worm for a long time. Okay, the workers quickly replied, not daring to show the slightest disrespect to a goo master. Adding on the fact that Fang Yuan bought so much wine, he could be said to be a big customer of the inn. With just a few words from the innkeeper, these workers could easily lose their jobs. After the workers left, Fang Yuan closed the door of the dormitory and sat cross-legged on the bed. It was already nighttime. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse, and the night wind carried a faint fragrance. The room was not lit, so Fang Yuan calmed his emotions and threw his mind into the primeval sea. The primeval sea was like waves, the seawater giving off a bronze luster. Every wave of seawater was the unique bronze primeval essence of a rank 1 goo master. The primeval sea only reached 44% of the entire aperture. This was the limit of Fang Yuan's sea-grade talent. The 4 walls of the aperture were a thin layer of white light film, supporting and enveloping the aperture. Above the primeval sea, there was nothing. Under Fang Yuan's command, the spring-autumn cicada had hidden itself again, recuperating in its deep sleep. But on the primeval sea, there was a white, fat, and cute liquor worm floating. It wantonly played around in the primeval sea, sometimes diving into the sea, sometimes swaying its head and tail, splashing water droplets. Fang Yuan's thoughts moved, and the liquor worm immediately responded, stopping its playfulness and curling into a rice ball shape. It slowly floated up to the center of the aperture, leaving the bronze sea. Go! Fang Yuan mobilized 10% of his primeval essence, forming a thin stream that rushed upwards, pouring into the liquor worm's body. The liquor worm had already been refined by him, so it did not reject it, absorbing all the primeval essence into its body. Immediately, 44% of the sea level decreased by a small amount. Transforming the true essence into power, the liquor worm, which had curled into a ball, began to blossom with a white light. The dense smell of wine gradually emerged from the scattered light, and finally converged into a cloud of pale white wine mist. The wine mist was wondrous. It did not disperse, but instead enveloped the liquor worm's body. Rise! With a thought, Fang Yuan mobilized another 10% of his quintessential essence. The bronze seawater pounced on the wine mist. The wine mist merged with the seawater and became less and less. In the end, there was nothing left. And that 10% of the green bronze true essence also disappeared out of thin air, leaving only 5%. However, this 5% true origin energy was much more condensed than before. His original true yuan was emerald green and emitted a copper luster. Now, although this true essence also had a copper color, the green color was deeper. It was a pale green color. Pale green primeval essence was the primeval essence that only rank 1 middle stage goo masters possessed. The liquor worm's effect was to condense primeval essence and raise a goo master's primeval essence by a small realm. Goo masters had 9 great realms, from low to high, rank 1, rank 2, all the way to rank 9. Every great realm was further subdivided into 4 smaller realms, which were initial stage, middle stage, upper stage, and peak stage. Fang Yuan was currently only a rank 1 initial stage goo master, but with the help of the liquor worm, he possessed 5% of a rank 1 middle stage goo master's primeval essence. If I want to condense 5% middle stage primeval essence, I will need to consume 20% of my initial stage primeval essence. If I want to convert 44% of the primeval sea in my aperture into middle stage primeval essence, I will need to consume close to 18% of my initial stage primeval essence. If I want to achieve this goal quickly, I will need to use the Yuan stone. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan opened his eyes and took out a complete Yuan stone the size of a duck egg from his bag. Yuan stone was a translucent oval-shaped stone with a gray-white color. As the natural primeval essence in the stone continued to be depleted, its size would also continue to shrink. He slowly closed his right hand, holding the Yuan stone tightly in his palm. He absorbed the natural primeval essence in it and continuously replenished his own aperture. The originally falling sea level in his aperture slowly rose. Yuan stone was meant to be used, and Fang Yuan was not stingy at all, nor did he know how to be thrifty. I have no backing, no friends or family to support me, so I can only rely on extortion and robbery. Today is only the first time, but from now on, every 7 days when the school distributes the Yuan stone allowance, I will continue to block the school entrance. How could extortion and robbery satisfy Fang Yuan's appetite? Yuan stone was lacking in goo master cultivation. As for the repercussions of this robbery, Fang Yuan was not the least bit worried. This world was different from Earth. On Earth, schools often forbade fighting in order to maintain stability and harmony. But in this world, fighting was the main theme. Be it goo masters or mortals, they all had to fight for survival. Sometimes they had to fight with terrifying wild beasts, sometimes they had to fight against the harsh and violent weather, and sometimes they had to fight with other goo masters for resources. Therefore, controlled fights were instead encouraged and advocated by the people. From childhood to adulthood, from fighting to life and death battles, this was the portrayal of most people's lives. This world was vast and boundless. Just the southern border where Fang Yuan lived was larger than 7 or 8 times the size of Earth. The living environment here was extremely harsh, and humans usually lived in clans, building villages and holing up in a corner. Every once in a while, there would be a beast tide or extremely harsh weather that would attack the village. Goo masters became the backbone of the village's defense, and the situation of losing people every year was quite serious. Life required people with strong fighting will. Clans needed fighting Gu masters, and they would never complain about having too many of them. Moreover, Fang Yuan had a sense of propriety when he attacked. He never attacked the chin, because it could easily cause skull fractures, which could easily lead to death. He also did not attack the back of other people's heads. When fighting, he did not use his fists, elbows, or fingers, but instead used his palms. The number of times he kicked could be counted on one hand. The students who fell were not heavily injured, at most lightly injured. Fang Yuan was not addicted to killing. He only treated killing as a method. Every time he attacked, he had a clear goal. Whatever method could allow him to achieve his goal, he would use it. In other words, he would do anything by hook or by crook. Dark clouds floated over, covering the moonlight. A layer of shadow shrouded Guyue's village. The night watchman banged his clapper, reminding the people that it was already late at night, to be careful of candles, beasts, and Gu masters who could infiltrate the village. There were still many lights in the village that were not extinguished. In the Red Branch family, Guyue's study room was brightly lit. This old man with high authority was using a gentle tone to console his grandson Guiyue. I heard you were beaten up by that Fang Yuan today? Guyue Cheng's right eye turned black, and he angrily said, Yes, grandfather. Fang Yuan is only a mere C grade, but he is so arrogant. He blocked all of us at the door, disregarding our friendship as classmates, and robbed our Yuan stone. What was even more infuriating was that the academy actually turned a blind eye to it. Only when Fang Yuan left did the guards arrive. Grandpa, you have to help your grandson vent his anger this time. Guyue Cheng shook his head. This is a matter between you juniors. You were only extorted from a mere piece of Yuan stone, and you were not heavily injured. Grandfather did not have a proper reason to act. Moreover, even if you were heavily injured, grandfather would not stand up for you. Do you understand why? Guyue Cheng was stunned. He thought hard, and after a while, he hesitantly said, Grandfather, I somewhat understand what you mean. You want me to rely on my own strength to get back at him, right? You only understood one aspect. Gu Cheng nodded. You have to remember, you are not only representing yourself, but also the image of our Red Branch family. Our Red Branch family and Mo Branch family have been at odds for many years, and your every move represents the future of our Red Branch family. Grandfather can help you in secret, but you have to erect the image of a strong and independent person. Otherwise, the elders who support us will not see any hope for the future and abandon our Red Branch family. At this point, Guyue Cheng sighed. This is also why grandfather helped you cheat and let you pretend to have a B-grade aptitude. Our Red Branch family needs a strong successor so that those who support us can continue to persevere. Guyue Cheng finally understood. Grandfather, I understand now. Guyue Cheng shook his head. It's useless to just understand. You have to work hard. Fang Yuan's matter is just a small problem, so you have to work hard and practice your basic martial arts to get back at him. At the same time, don't forget to cultivate diligently and advance to the intermediate level as soon as possible. It's best if you can obtain the position of class chairman. This is a great honor, and also a kind of help to our Red Branch family. Yes, grandfather, Guyue Cheng responded loudly. He. This spirit is what a successor of our Red Branch family should be like. Grandson, work hard. Grandfather will do his best to help you. Chapter 30. Almost at the same time, on the other side. Father, mother, that's basically what happened. Fang Jing stood straight and said respectfully. In the hall, Fang Yuan's uncle, Guyue Dong too, and Aunt sat on a wide-backed chair, both frowning. Aunt gritted her teeth, feeling injustice for Fang Jing while gloating. Fang Yuan, that little bastard. He extorted other people, but I can't believe he won't even let his own brother go. How could he be so heartless? But he made such a big mistake this time. I think he'll be expelled from the academy soon. All right, you can stop talking. Uncle sighed and said to Fang Jing, You lost Yuan stone, but it's just one piece, don't worry. Go to the accountant and get another one. This has nothing to do with you. Go and cultivate. With your grade talent, it's very possible for you to become the first middle stage Gu master. Don't waste your talent. Mother and I are looking forward to you becoming number one. Yes, father, mother. I'll take my leave. Fang Jing left with a heavy heart. He thought to himself, Big Brother blocked the academy door today and robbed all the students. He caused such a bad influence. I'm afraid he'll really be expelled. At that time, should I plead for him? There were two voices in his mind. One voice said, no need to plead. He even wanted to rob his own brother's yuan stone. Even if he's expelled, he only has himself to blame. You can survive a natural disaster, but you can't survive a self-inflicted disaster. Another voice said, he's your biological brother. You have a similar face. Blood is thicker than water. All right, even if you don't acknowledge him, you have to plead for him. If you don't plead for him, how will others see you? They'll think you're heartless. Seeing Fang Jing leave the hall, Ant could not help but say happily, Master, we've cut off Fang Yuan's living expenses. This little bastard couldn't hold it in and made a big mistake this time. He actually dared to block the entrance of the academy and fight in public, and even extorted money. This was no different from provoking the academy elder. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets fired. His uncle shook his head. You're oversimplifying things. Fang Yuan won't be fired. He might not even be punished. Why? His aunt was puzzled. Uncle sneered, fighting is encouraged, as long as there are no serious consequences. Did any of the students die in this fight? No. Aunt was a little unconvinced. How do you know it's not there, Master? Accidents are bound to happen in a fight. Her uncle closed his eyes and leaned against the back of the chair. You are so naive, my wife. Do you really think the academy elder is just a decoration? When did the guards move out? They were the last to make a move, which meant that the situation had been under control. If someone was seriously injured, they would have rushed out long ago. They wouldn't have waited until the end. You are not a Gu master, so you won't understand. The academy does not forbid students from fighting, and even encourages it. The more he fought, the more helpful it would be to the battle. Some students could even forge a solid friendship through fighting. The elders would not pursue this matter. This is already the norm. If anyone tries to protect their own, that person would be breaking this rule. His aunt was dumbfounded and said unwillingly that Fang Yuan robbed such a large amount of yuan stone and nothing happened to him? We're letting him off just like that? With such a large amount of yuan stone, it would be of great help to his cultivation. Uncle opened his eyes, his face clouded. What else can I do? Do you want me to go over and snatch his yuan stone with my own hands? But it's not like we can't make use of this. Fang Yuan even robbed and blackmailed his brother, Fang Zheng. This is his downfall. Fang Zheng is an A-grade talent, and one day he will be stronger than him. We can use this matter to sow discord between Fang Zheng and him. Let Fang Zheng distance himself from Fang Yuan completely and be of use to us. Just like that, 3 days passed. The storm caused by Fang Yuan's robbery and blackmail did not spread, nor did it grow bigger. Instead, it seemed to be gradually calming down. There were no elders who broke the rules and personally came to cause trouble for Fang Yuan, and the academy elder naturally closed one eye. Although during this period, there were 2 or 3 youths who were dissatisfied with the fact that the yuan stone had been robbed and challenged Fang Yuan again. But after Fang Yuan easily defeated them, everyone realized that if they did not train hard, they would not be able to win against Fang Yuan. Among these youths, there was a wave of hard work in training the basics of martial arts. The martial arts instructor was overjoyed. He had never seen a batch of students with such passion and dedication towards basic martial arts. In the past, when he was teaching, the students all lacked interest and yawned nonstop. But now, their eyes were bright and full of spirit, and they constantly asked for advice. The academy elder specially came to ask about the situation here. The martial arts instructor reported with an excited tone, "The students have displayed unexpected passion. The change is too big. But one of them is called Fang Yuan, and he is still as lazy as before." The academy elder laughed and patted his shoulder. "The student you speak of is the source of the change in the others." The martial arts instructor did not understand. Of course, the change was not limited to this. After this incident, Fang Yuan undoubtedly became the public enemy of all the students, and was viewed as an enemy and isolated by everyone. No one spoke to him anymore, and no one greeted him. The youths all mustered up their energy and secretly trained hard in the basics of martial arts. Under the encouragement and instructions of the elders behind them, they had already decided that they must get back at Feng Yuan with their own hands. Under the calm surface, the undercurrent was turbulent. Another 4 days passed. The academy elder once again distributed the Yuan stone, and it was time for Feng Yuan to make his move again. Feng Yuan, it's not enough for you to steal once. You still want to steal our Yuan stone. The students were blocked by Feng Yuan at the door again, and were both shocked and angry. Feng Yuan stood in the middle of the door, his hands behind his back, his expression cold and his tone calm. Everyone gets 1 Yuan stone, and you will be spared from physical pain. Feng Yuan, you've gone too far. I want to challenge you. Guyue Mabe roared and took the lead to fight. Oh? Feng Yuan's eyebrows slightly raised. Mabe raised both his fists and rushed over. After a few rounds, he fainted on the ground. Mabe, you're too useless. Watch me. Guyue Mabe roared and rushed towards Feng Yuan. After a short exchange of attack and defense, he followed in Mabe's footsteps. Feng Yuan's battle experience was thousands of times more than theirs, even though he had just started cultivating, but every bit of his strength was used to the point. This group of youths had only just started. If they all rushed at him, they might cause him some trouble. But to challenge him one by one, it was even easier than the first time he robbed someone. After a quarter of an hour, he carried a bulging money bag and left leisurely, leaving behind a group of youths. Some were unconscious, some were hugging their stomachs or holding their crotch, moaning and howling. Brothers, quickly clean up the mess. The guard shouted, and all rushed forward. Chapter 31. I trained hard for 7 days, but I only managed to last 2 moves against Feng Yuan before he knocked me out again. Shame, shame. Guyue Mabe's heart was filled with anger and humiliation. In the courtyard of his house, he constantly punched and kicked the wooden puppet, making loud banging sounds. At this time, a light laugh could be heard. Little brother, do you have a deep grudge against the wooden puppet? Why do you hate it so much? Hearing this familiar voice, Guyue Mabe's expression relaxed. He stopped attacking and turned around. Sister, you're back? Yes, the clan assigned me a scouting mission, and I was gone for more than 10 days. Guyue Mo Yen replied with a smile. She was Mabe's sister, and was already a rank 2 middle stage Gu master. But her expression quickly changed, and her gaze became sharp. Little brother, what happened to the scars on your face? Who bullied you? Nothing much. I accidentally tripped while walking and hit my head. Mabe's face flashed with a trace of panic, and he gave a random excuse. He did not want his sister to know about such an embarrassing matter. The future head of the Mo branch family, Guyue Mo Chen's grandson, had actually been knocked out twice in a row. But fortunately, he was not the only unlucky one. Everyone else was involved. Oh, is that so? Then you have to be careful. All right, you need to practice your martial arts. This won't do. You don't have a defensive gu, so you need to wrap your body with a thick cloth. That way, your limbs won't get hurt. Guyue Mo Yen reminded him and then left. Greetings, Missy. Greetings, Missy. Missy, you're back. This servant greets Missy. Guyue Mo Yan's expression was cold, and she walked quickly. Along the way, all the servants she met bowed to her. She walked to the study room, and without reporting, she pushed open the door and entered. In the study room, Guyue Mo Chen's back was facing her, and he was standing in front of the desk, practicing calligraphy. You're back? Guyue Mo Chen did not turn around. Instead, he asked, You've been scouting outside for more than half a month. How's the situation at the Wolf's Den? Grandpa, how did you know it was me? Mo Yen was stunned. Humph, in the whole family, only you can rely on my love to break the rules and not even knock on the door. Who else can it be? Guyue Mo Chen said in a reproachful tone. However, when he turned around, his expression was very gentle. He looked at Mo Yen with a smile in his eyes. Mo Yen pursed her lips. If we're talking about doting, Grandpa actually dotes on his younger brother more. It's just that my younger brother is going to be in power in the future, and Grandfather is very strict with him. Others can't understand this kind of love. He paused for a moment before asking, Grandpa, Why was I beaten up? When I asked him, he lied. I couldn't force him, so I came to ask Grandpa. Guyue Machen's expression turned serious. You still haven't answered my question. He put down his pen, pulled out a chair, and slowly sat down. Imo Yin had no choice but to report. The wolf den is almost full. Based on this rate of reproduction, although there won't be a wolf tide this year, there will definitely be a wolf tide next year. Guyue Machen asked again. There's a wolf tide every 3 years, so it's not rare. But how many Thunder Crown wolves are there in that wolf pack? About 3, Imo Yin replied. Guyue Machen nodded and relaxed. The Thunder Crown wolf was the leader of the wolf pack. When the wolf tide attacked the village, it was the most troublesome existence. 3 Thunder Crown wolves was not a lot, because there were 3 villages on Qingmao Mountain. Each village shared 1 wolf, so the pressure of the wolf tide would be greatly reduced. Grandpa, you still haven't told me about my younger brother, Imo Yin said unwillingly. There's no harm in telling you. Mabe was beaten up by someone. Once 7 days ago, and the second time today. He was beaten up in front of the school gate, and he fainted on the spot both times, Gu Machen said with a smile. Who had the guts to knock out my younger brother? Imo Yin stared at him. It's his classmate, Fang Yuan. He did a good job. Guyue Machen laughed out loud. Imo Yan's eyes widened, and she asked in confusion, Grandpa, what do you mean? Mabe is your grandson. Guyue Machen looked at his granddaughter deeply and said earnestly, Imo Yin, you're a girl, so you might not understand. Failure and humiliation will make people improve. Without failure, you can't make a mature man. Mabe was beaten up, and that was his own failure. As soon as he woke up, he started to learn from the guards. This is a kind of improvement, and this improvement was brought about by Fang Yuan, who woke him up. As his sister, if you really want to love him, don't interfere with his growth. Fang Yuan is only a C-grade poor boy, and Mabe is B-grade. He has us behind him, and sooner or later, he will step on Fang Yuan. Leave this opponent to Mabe. In a woman's life, she needs friends and lovers. In a man's life, friends and lovers are not essential, but he can't lack opponents. Don't cause trouble for Fang Yuan, understand? This is a matter for the younger generation. If you get involved, you'll be bullying the young. If you break the rules, others will look down on us. Imo Yin opened her mouth a few times, but under Guyue Machen's gaze, she finally lowered her head and replied, Yes, Grandpa, I understand. She left the study with her head down. Even Guyue Mabe didn't notice that her eyes were shining with a different light. Grandpa, this is your way of spoiling your grandson. And I, Imo Yin, have my own way of doting on my younger brother. Imo Yin already had another plan in mind. In the inn's dining hall, there were a few tables with people sitting and eating, making the place seem a little lively. 1 or 2 waiters were carrying plates of food, shuttling between the tables. Fang Yuan sat at a table near the window, ordering a few dishes. He looked out the window as he ate. In the sky, the sunset glow was like fire, quietly burning. The sun was already halfway down. It gazed at the earth for the last time, and the afterglow was its reluctant gaze. The mountains in the distance were already covered by the twilight. On the nearby streets, there were people returning home. Some were barefoot farmers covered in mud. Some were herb gatherers carrying medicine baskets. Some were hunters carrying pheasants, wild boars, and other prey, and some were gu masters. They wore blue martial attire, looking capable and capable. Their heads were tied with headbands, and their waists were tied with wide belts. This belt was very particular. A rank 1 gu master would wear a green belt, with a copper plate on the front and the word 1 on the copper plate. Rank 2 gu masters' belts were red, with a metal plate in the center, and the word 2 was carved on it. Fang Yuan sat by the window and observed for a while. He saw 6 or 7 rank 1 gu masters, most of them young. There was also a rank 2 gu master, a middle-aged man. As for rank 3 gu masters, they were usually clan elders. Rank 4 gu masters were the clan leader, the head of the village. Rank 5 gu masters were very rare. In the history of the Guyue clan, there were only the 1st-generation clan leader and the 4th-generation clan leader. Actually, observing a clan's strength is a very simple matter. As long as you find a place to sit in the village and observe the passers-by for an hour, and see how many rank 1 Gu Masters and rank 2 Gu Masters there are, you can see the clan's foundation and strength. Fang Yuan combined his 500 years of experience and came up with this conclusion. In the case of the Guyue village, out of the 20 passers-by on the streets, there would be 6 Gu Masters. Among these 6 Gu Masters, there would be a 50% chance that there would be a rank 2 Gu Master. The Guyue village relied on this strength and foundation to occupy one of the best resource points in Qingmao Mountain. It could be said to be the overlord of Qingmao Mountain, but Qingmao Mountain was just a small corner of the vast southern border. The Guyue village in the entire southern border could only be considered a lower middle-class clan. I've only just started cultivating, and with my rank 1 initial stage cultivation, I don't even have the qualifications to roam the southern border alone. I need at least rank 3 strength to travel far. Fang Yuan ate a mouthful of food and sighed in his heart. Qingmao Mountain was too small and could not contain his ambitions. He was destined to leave. Haha, Gua Fang Yuan, I finally found you. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked over with a sinister smile. Fang Yuan turned his head slightly and saw that the man's face was waxy yellow, and he had drooping eyebrows, but he was tall and muscular. At this moment, he walked over with big strides and crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking down at the young Fang Yuan who was eating. His slender eyes flashed with a cold light. Fang Yuan, do you know that you're in big trouble? He. You actually dared to hit our Mo family's young master, and now the young lady, Mo Yin, is looking for you everywhere. The middle-aged man laughed coldly. He used his gaze to size up Fang Yuan, faintly emitting a threatening aura. Chapter 32. If it was a normal person being stared at by this middle-aged man, they would probably be scared. But after Fang Yuan looked at him, he lost interest and returned his attention to the food on the table, treating the middle-aged man as if he was invisible. Who is that person? He's dressed like a servant, and he's not a Gu Master. Yet he dares to question young Master Fang Yuan? One of the waiters saw that the situation was not good and shrank in a corner, asking in confusion. He's just a fox exploiting the tiger's might. One look, and you can tell he's a servant of the Mo family, relying on the backing of the Gu Master to be arrogant. If it was any other mortal, who would have the guts to do so? Someone beside him sneered in disdain. Even so, he's just a mortal, yet he dares to shout at a Gu Master. TSK, this kind of experience must be very satisfying. TSK, don't think too highly of a Gu Master. Young Master Fang Yuan is only a rank 1 beginner stage, and has just refined his natal Gu. If they really fight, he might not be able to beat this strong and skillful mortal. Sigh, I hope they don't break anything in our inn when they fight. The waiters spoke one after another, not daring to move forward, only daring to shrink their heads and look around. You still have the mood to continue eating and drinking. Seeing that his words did not scare Fang Yuan, the tall and strong middle-aged man's eyes flashed coldly. You think I'm lying to you? Someone has already gone to inform Missy, and she'll be here soon. Kid, don't think of running away. Of course, you can't run either. I'm here to watch over you. You'll have a good time later. Fang Yuan turned a deaf ear and continued to eat. The middle-aged servant frowned. He did not see a trace of fear or panic on Fang Yuan's face. This made him feel like he was being ignored, and his dignity was being violated. He had been a servant in the Mo family for more than 10 years, and was trusted by the masters. After interacting with them for a long time, he knew some things about Gu Masters. Rank 1 beginner stage Gu Masters mostly relied on their fists and feet in fights. In battle, the deterrent effect of Gu worms was far greater than its practical use. Especially when he knew that a young Gu Master like Fang Yuan had just started cultivating, his strength was far inferior to a person in his prime. If they were to fight with their fists and legs, he would definitely be able to gain the upper hand after training for a long time. At the same time, Fang Yuan had only refined the Moonlight Gu, so he could at most shoot out a few moonblades. The middle-aged man had been used as a sparring partner for a long time. He had personal experience and was clear in his heart. If the Moonblade activated by first-rank initial stage primeval essence were to really be imprinted on a human body, it would at most be able to leave a wound the size of a palm, and its destructive power would be very limited. In addition, he had the support of the Mo family. Therefore, he was fearless when facing Feng Yuan. He wanted to perform well and earn his master's favor. "Kid, you've got guts." The middle-aged man's tone became even more unfriendly. As he spoke, he rolled up his sleeves, revealing his muscular arms. His arms were very thick and covered with scars. The veins on his forearms were bulging and twisting, and his upper arms were thicker than Feng Yuan's thighs. The waiters of the inn felt a chill in their hearts. Some of the customers had already gotten up and hurriedly paid their bills, wanting to leave this troublesome place. "Have you found Feng Yuan?" At this moment, a clear and arrogant female voice came from the door. Mo Yin took big steps and stepped into the inn. Behind her was a group of rich family servants. Her figure was not bad. She was slightly tall and had a nice figure. However, she had a horse-like face and inherited the characteristics of the Mo bloodline, causing her beauty to be greatly reduced. She could barely be considered average. However, she wore a blue martial attire with a wide red belt around her waist. There was a square metal plate embedded on the belt. The metal plate was engraved with an eye-catching 2. Moreover, she had just returned from a family mission, so there was still some traces of hardships left on her body. These things condensed a trace of a sharp and threatening aura. Thus, once she stepped into the inn, her imposing aura caused the entire inn's dining hall to fall into silence. This servant, Gao Wan, pays his respects to Miss Mo. The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed when he saw Mo Yin. A flattering smile appeared on his face as he bent his waist and took a few small steps. Then, with a plop, he knelt on the ground and greeted Mo Yin. The waiters of the inn were a little dumbfounded when they saw the middle-aged man's transformation. Gao Wan was tall and burly, so the way he bowed was a little out of place and a little ridiculous. However, the waiters of the inn couldn't laugh. This middle-aged family servant's behavior highlighted Mo Yin's power. Some of the waiters couldn't help but secretly sweat for Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan was their big customer. If anything happened to him, they would definitely be shocked. It would be bad if they couldn't take care of the inn's business in the future. Even more people were praying in their hearts. "I hope Feng Yuan will surrender without putting up a fight." If a fight really broke out and the inn's things were damaged, it would be even worse. Mo Yin didn't look at Gao Wan, who was kneeling on the ground. Her eyes were fixed on Feng Yuan. She took a few big steps to the table and said in an extremely fierce tone, "You are Feng Yuan? Seems like you're enjoying your meal. Haha, have you ever tasted a fist? I'll let you have a taste. Perhaps it'll be even more delicious." Although she said this, Mo Yin didn't immediately make a move. Feng Yuan's behavior was too calm and too strange. Could it be that he had a hidden backer behind him? But that shouldn't be the case. Before I came, I already investigated. This Feng Yuan is a typical example of a person who is not loved by his uncle or grandmother. His parents passed away when he was young, and he was chased out by his aunt and uncle. In addition, his aptitude is only C grade. What kind of background could a weak young man have? Mo Yin couldn't help but mutter in her heart. But no matter what, it was strange. This matter was strange, and she had to probe further. Feng Yuan chuckled and glanced at Mo Yin. "Who told you that I am Gue Feng Yuan?" Mo Yin was momentarily stunned and immediately turned to look at Gao Wan. Gao Wan had just stood up, but he immediately knelt down again. His forehead was dripping with cold sweat. He stuttered, not knowing how to answer. "Master, your servant, your servant." They had Feng Yuan's portrait, but they also knew that Feng Yuan and Feng Zheng were twins. They looked very similar. No wonder this young man is so fearless. He is Feng Zheng and not Feng Yuan. For a moment, the servants around Mo Yin all had this guess. Feng Zheng is not someone that Feng Yuan can compare to. The latter is only a C-grade talent and is alone without any backing. The former is an A-grade talent and was recruited by the clan leader during the awakening ceremony. As long as he grows up, his future will be limitless. Mo Yin didn't get a definite answer from Gao Wan, so she was even more hesitant. At this moment, only a group of servants in the corner of the inn knew about Feng Yuan's identity, but they couldn't afford to offend either side. Hence, they all kept their mouths shut. Feng Yuan was full. He slowly stood up and looked at Mo Yin. Aren't you looking for Fang Yuan? Follow me. I'll bring you to the school dormitory. If this person in front of me is Fang Zheng, I don't want to offend him. If it's Fang Yuan, I'll follow him closely. I'm not afraid of him pretending to be me. Imo Yan's thoughts turned, and she made a decision. All right, I'll follow you to the school. Please. Imo Yan stepped aside and extended her hand. Her eyes were shining as she gestured to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan smiled and walked away with his head held high. Imo Yin followed closely behind him, and the servants followed behind her. That was close. They're finally gone. Even if they fought, it has nothing to do with our inn. The servants were left behind. Most of them patted their chests in relief. The group of people arrived at the school entrance. Halt. Stop. Only our clan's Gu masters are allowed to enter the school. 2 guards at the door stopped Fang Yuan, Imo Yin, and the others. How dare you? You don't even recognize me? How dare you stop me? Imo Yin glared at the 2 guards and shouted, We don't dare. The guards quickly cupped their fists. Miss Imo Yin, we've engraved you in our hearts. But the clan rules are absolute. How about this, miss? We'll allow you to bring in a servant. This is the greatest concession we can make. An old guard replied respectfully. Imo Yin snorted. Although she was reluctant, she didn't dare to go against the clan's rules. The Imo family was powerful, but it attracted the most attention. Don't forget that other than the Imo family, there was also the Qi family. Other than the Qi family, there was also the clan leader's faction waiting to catch the Imo family's weakness. All of you stay. Gaowan, follow me, Imo Yin ordered after thinking for a while. Gaowan immediately puffed out his chest, his face full of joy. Thank you for your appreciation, miss. Let's go, Junior. Imo Yin smiled meaningfully at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's face was still calm as he led the way. He arrived at the door of the dormitory, opened the lock, and pushed the door open. He took a step into the room, then stopped. The door was wide open, and the room was unobstructed. The furnishings were simple, and there was no one else in the room. Imo Yin stood at the door and looked inside. Her face darkened. Junior, you better explain yourself. There's no one in the room. Fang Yuan smiled. Am I not a person? Imo Yin stared at Fang Yuan. Her eyes flashed as if she realized something. I'm looking for Gu. You. Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan chuckled. I never said I wasn't Gu Fang Yuan. Chapter 33. Imo Yin frowned, anger appearing on her horse-like face. She finally understood that she had been played by Fang Yuan. Heh, such guts. You even dare to deceive your grand. Saying so, she stretched out her right hand, about to grab Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan did not take a step back. He raised his head and laughed. Imo Yin, you better think this through. Imo Yin stopped. She was still outside the door, her right hand suspended in midair. A hint of hesitation and anger flashed across her face. There were clear rules in the family. Students were protected in the academy. No one was allowed to break into the dormitory and capture students. Imo Yin only wanted to teach Fang Yuan a lesson today, to let him taste the pain. She did not want to take the risk of breaking the family rules. It's fine if I break the rules myself. I'm just afraid that I'll implicate my family and grandfather. Thinking of this, Imo Yin retracted her hand. She looked at Fang Yuan in the room, her eyes wide open. The anger in her eyes, if turned into flames, could burn Fang Yuan to ashes in an instant. I never lied to you. I said I'll bring you to Fang Yuan, and now you've found him. It seems like you have something to say to me. Fang Yuan held his hands behind his back, a slight smile on his face. He did not fear the power of a rank 2 Gu master, and he met Imo Yan's angry gaze without fear. He was only one step away from Imo Yan. One was in the room, and the other was outside. But this distance was like the distance between heaven and earth. Fang Yuan. Oh, Fang Yuan, you've studied the family rules very thoroughly. Imo Yan suppressed her anger, a cold smile on her face. Unfortunately, you can only delay it by relying on the family rules. You can't stay in the dormitory. I want to see how long you can hide. Fang Yuan laughed, looking at Imo Yin with disdain. Then I want to see how long you can keep me here. Ah, it's already night, and you have a bed to sleep in. What about you? If I'm not in class the next day, and the academy elder investigates, what do you think I'll say? You. Imo Yin was enraged. She pointed at Fang Yuan and said, "Do you really think I won't dare to come in and take you away?" Creak. Fang Yuan left the dormitory door wide open. His lips curled into a smile, and his eyes were as deep as the abyss. His tone was filled with confidence, as if he was in control of the situation. He said to Imo Yin in a provocative tone, "Then do it." Hee hee. Imo Yin calmed down. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Fang Yuan. "Do you think I'll fall for your trick?" Fang Yuan shrugged. He had already seen through Imo Yan's character. If he closed the door or left it half open, there was at least a 50% chance that Imo Yin would force her way in. However, if he deliberately opened the door completely, it would make Imo Yin calm down and be more cautious. The possibility of her breaking in by force was very small. 500 years of experience had allowed him to understand the weaknesses of human nature. He turned around and exposed his back to Imo Yin. If Imo Yin came to grab him now, she would most likely succeed in one strike. However, Imo Yin stood outside the door without moving, as if there was an invisible mountain in front of her, blocking her way. Until Fang Yuan sat cross-legged on the bed, Imo Yin looked at him angrily. She gritted her teeth, but did not make a move. This is the sad thing about humans. Fang Yuan sat cross-legged and looked at Imo Yin, who was standing foolishly outside the door. He sighed. Sometimes, it's not material problems that stop people from taking action, but the shackles of the soul. In terms of cultivation, Fang Yuan was definitely not Imo Yan's match. However, even though she was a rank 2 cultivator, she could only look at Fang Yuan and did not dare to make a move. She was only a few steps away from Fang Yuan. The door was wide open, and there was no obstruction. The one that was holding her back was herself. Humans learn by all means to understand the world, to understand the rules, and to make use of the rules. If you are restrained by the rules, you will be restrained because of what you have learned. That is the real tragedy. Fang Yuan took one last look at Imo Yin, then slowly closed his eyes and sank his consciousness into the primordial sea. This Fang Yuan is actually cultivating in front of me. You're simply looking down on me. Seeing this scene, Imo Yin was so angry that her chest felt agitated, and she almost vomited blood. She wanted to rush up and give Fang Yuan a few punches. However, she knew that she could not. Imo Yin suddenly felt a tinge of regret. She stood outside the door, feeling awkward and unable to back down. She was not willing to give up, but she could not bring herself to do so. She had mobilized so many people to teach Fang Yuan a lesson, but in the end, she was disgraced, especially when there was a servant looking at her. Damn it, this brat Fang Yuan is too uncooperative, too cunning. Imo Yin thought angrily and began to scold Fang Yuan outside the door, trying to provoke him. Fang Yuan, you little bastard. Come out if you have the guts. Fang Yuan, as a man, you should be brave and take responsibility for what you have done. Now, you are a turtle hiding in its shell. How despicable. Don't put on an act in front of me. If you know what's good for you, come out now. You coward, good for nothing. Fang Yuan turned a deaf ear and did not respond at all. Imo Yin scolded for a while, but she did not feel the pleasure of scolding people. Instead, she felt more and more depressed. She felt more and more like a clown or a shrew. Her behavior of blocking the door was really embarrassing. I'm so angry. Imo Yin was going crazy and finally gave up trying to provoke him. Fang Yuan, you can hide now, but you can't hide forever. She stomped her feet and left unwillingly. Before she left, she gave an order. Gao Wan, stand here and stare at him. I don't believe he won't come out. I will obey. The muscular servant Gao Wan quickly replied, sending Imo Yin off with a respectful gaze. But in his heart, he was complaining. The night in the mountains was cold and humid, but he had to guard the place all night. If he was not careful, he would catch a cold. This was a tough job. Swish, swish, swish. The primeval sea rose and fell. Waves rose and fell. The bronze primeval essence gathered like water, forming a wave. Under the control of Fang Yuan's will, it continuously rushed towards the aperture walls. The aperture walls of a rank 1 initial stage Gu Master were all made of white light. At this moment, under the impact of the bronze primeval essence, it showed a multicolored light, giving off an indescribable charm. Time passed by bit, and the bronze primeval sea's water level also slowly decreased. From the original 44%, it dropped to 12%. A goo master needs to continuously expend primeval essence to nurture the aperture. Initial stage goo masters have light walls, middle stage goo masters have water walls, and high stage goo masters have stone walls. If I want to advance from initial stage to middle stage, I need to wash the light walls and nurture them into water walls. The 500 years of memories from his previous life allowed Feng Yuan to grasp this period's cultivation like the back of his hand. He slowly opened his eyes. At this time, it was already late at night. The crescent moon hung high in the night sky, shedding moonlight that was as white as water. The door was wide open, and the moonlight shone in, making Feng Yuan think of a famous poem on earth, the bright moonlight in front of my bed. I suspect it to be the frost on the ground. The night wind blew gently, bringing with it a cold feeling. Feng Yuan did not have a goo worm that could keep him warm. Even with his 15-year-old body, he could not help but shiver. The night in the mountains was still very cold. Brat, you finally opened your eyes. How long are you going to cultivate? Hurry up and come out. If you stick your head out, you will still be stabbed. You hit our family's Mabe young master. Sooner or later you will be taught a lesson by our Missy. Seeing that Feng Yuan finally moved, the noble servant Gao Wan, who had been standing at the door, immediately became spirited. Feng Yuan squinted his eyes. It seems that the rank 2 female goo master had already left. Brat, did you hear that? Hurry up and come out. You have a room to stay in and a bed to sleep in, but I have to stand in this courtyard. If you don't come out, do you believe I won't barge in? Seeing that Feng Yuan did not react, Gao Wan threatened. Feng Yuan was still indifferent. Bastard, hurry up and come out to be captured. You have offended our Mo faction. You will not have a good life in the future. Hurry up and kowtow to Missy and admit your wrongs. Maybe she will forgive you. Gao Wan continued to scold. Feng Yuan turned a deaf ear to him. He slowly took out a yuan stone from his money bag, holding it in his palm. Then, he slowly closed his eyes. Gao Wan saw that Feng Yuan still wanted to continue cultivating, and immediately became anxious, scolding, "You are just a mere C-grade talent. At most you are a rank 2 goo master. What is there to cultivate? With just you alone, how can you contend against the entire Desert Branch family? Brat, are you deaf? Did you hear what I said?" Chapter 34. Feng Yuan turned a deaf ear, multitasking. He absorbed the natural primeval essence from the yuan stone while observing his aperture. The originally low primeval essence C in the aperture, with the continuous infusion of natural primeval essence, had begun to slowly rise. This recovery speed was somewhat slow, but Feng Yuan was not anxious. Cultivation was accumulation. It could not be rushed. The one who was really anxious was the middle-aged male servant outside the room. After about half an hour, Feng Yuan's green copper primeval essence C reached the limit of 44%. But this was not the end. At this time, the primeval essence C showed a kind of emerald green color. This was only rank 1 initial stage green copper primeval essence. The primeval essence that Feng Yuan used to warm the aperture wall was not initial stage primeval essence. It was middle stage primeval essence refined by the liquor worm. Liquor worm. With a thought from Feng Yuan, the liquor worm in the primeval C immediately flew up and hovered in the air, shrinking into a white glutinous rice ball. Swoosh! 10% of the initial stage primeval essence was mobilized and entered the liquor worm's body. It was quickly absorbed. Then, a fragrant wine mist emitted from the liquor worm's body, condensing into a ball. Feng Yuan mobilized another 10% of primeval essence and entered this wine mist. After the wine mist was completely consumed, the original 10% of the initial stage primeval essence suddenly shrunk by half, and at the same time, the color changed from emerald green to pale green. This was middle stage primeval essence. Ordinary students, to advance their cultivation, they all use rank 1 initial stage primeval essence. But I use middle stage primeval essence. The efficiency is at least 2 times higher than them. At the same time, Using middle stage primeval essence to activate the moonlight goo, the moonblade is also more powerful than the initial stage primeval essence. Only when the primeval sea was purified into rank 1 middle stage primeval essence did Feng Yuan open his eyes. Cultivation knew no time. It was already early in the morning. The sky was no longer pure black. Instead, it was a deep dark blue color. The moon had already disappeared, leaving only a few broken stars. The door had been open for almost the entire night. The corner of the wooden door had been soaked, revealing a kind of black color brought by water stains. This was the disadvantage of the school dormitory. It was not as comfortable as a normal bamboo house. It sat directly on the ground, so it was more humid. When he came back to his senses, Feng Yuan also felt a chill wrapping around his body. After sitting cross-legged for so long, his legs seemed to be a little numb. He loosened his clenched right hand and immediately sprinkled a layer of grayish-white stone powder. This was the residue left behind after the natural Jin Yuan in the Yuan stone was completely absorbed. I've used up 3 Yuan stone in 1 night of cultivation, Feng Yuan calculated in his mind. He only had C-grade aptitude, but in order to increase his cultivation speed, he had been using Yuan stones to replenish his true Yuan. More importantly, he used the liquor worm to refine the middle-grade true essence. This greatly increased the consumption of Yuan stone. Although I managed to rob a large sum of money yesterday, I used up 3 Yuan stone pieces in 1 night. In this way, even though Yuan stone seems to be a lot, it won't be able to withstand the long-term consumption of cultivation. However, the pursuit of cultivation speed and efficiency naturally comes with a price. Feng Yuan looked out of the door again. He saw the strong servant called Gao Wan squatting at the corner of the wall, his body curled up into a ball as if he had fallen asleep. Looks like that rank 2 female Gu master has already left. She left Gao Wan here to guard me. Hee. Feng Yuan's lips curled into a cold smile. He got off the bed and began to quietly move his fists and legs. As his body gradually warmed up, he stepped out of the dormitory. Kid, you're finally willing to come out. How about it? Obediently surrender and follow me. Kowtow to my mistress and admit your wrongs. Gao Wan's ears twitched as he caught the sound of Feng Yuan's footsteps and stood up abruptly. His body was thick and strong, almost twice the size of Feng Yuan. The muscles on his body bulged, and under his slanted eyebrows, a pair of narrow eyes flashed with a cruel and evil light, like a hungry hyena. Feng Yuan was expressionless as he continued to walk towards him. Kid, it's fine if you came out earlier. Now that you've come out, do you know how much I've suffered in order to guard you? He chuckled as he strode towards Feng Yuan, his expression filled with evil intentions. At this moment, Feng Yuan suddenly shouted and leapt up, raising his fists and rushing towards Gao Wan. Stinking brat, you're courting death. Gao Wan's expression was twisted. He was filled with anger now. He raised his earthen bowl-sized fist and smashed it towards Feng Yuan. This fist was extremely powerful, breaking through the air and actually bringing with it the sound of the wind. Feng Yuan's gaze was as clear as water. Seeing the fist coming towards him, he shifted his feet and swayed to Gao Wan's side. He stretched out his finger and poked Gao Wan's waist. Gao Wan blocked with his arm, but Feng Yuan did not manage to poke him and hit Gao Wan's left forearm instead. Feng Yuan felt as if his finger had poked a metal plate. It was painful and numb. This Gao Wan is already at the peak of a mortal's martial arts. I only have the moonlight goo to fight now. Without the help of other goo worms, I'm not his match with just my fists and legs. Feng Yuan's gaze flashed, and he wisely gave up on attacking. He took a few steps back and pulled apart the distance. In the Guyue village, only the Guyue clansmen had the right to cultivate as Gu masters. The rest of the clansmen, regardless of whether they had the talent to cultivate or not, did not have the right to participate in the awakening ceremony. But these mortals could cultivate their fists and legs, just like Gao Wan in front of him. Although he was not a Gu master, he had definitely trained hard in his fists and legs. His basic skills were quite solid, and he was also a middle-aged man, the prime of a mortal's life. Other than the moonlight goo which could be used for battle, Feng Yuan's body was only that of a 15-year-old youth. Whether it was strength, agility, or endurance, he was not Gao Wan's match. A martial artist like Gao Wan was enough to kill a rank 1 initial stage Gu master. Even a middle stage Gu master could pose a certain threat. This kid, he's too vicious. Seeing Fang Yuan pull away from him, Gao Wan's heart still had lingering fear. The waist was a person's vital point, and if someone forcefully poked it, the injury would not be light. If one used too much strength, it could even kill someone. Gao Wan had stayed outside the courtyard for most of the night. His body was wrapped in the cold and damp air, and his reaction was somewhat slow. Just that one strike, and Fang Yuan had almost succeeded. Luckily, although he usually sucked up to others, he had also trained hard. At the crucial moment, his body's instincts overrode his brain's reaction, and he had narrowly defended against Fang Yuan's attack. I can't be careless anymore. This kid is a wolf cub. His attacks are ruthless and sneaky. If I'm not careful, I'll fall into his trap. No wonder young master was knocked unconscious by him twice. Gao Wan wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, sweeping away the contempt he had earlier, and started to take Fang Yuan seriously. If I catch this kid, I'll have made a great contribution. When the time comes, young miss will definitely reward me. A rank 1 initial stage moonblade can at most be considered a knife. As long as it doesn't hit a vital point, it'll just be a superficial wound. Thinking of this, Gao Wan's heart started to heat up. He stretched out his iron pincer-like hands, grabbing towards Fang Yuan. Bam, bam, bam. Fang Yuan was not the least bit afraid. He faced Gao Wan head-on, engaging in close combat. For a moment, fists and legs clashed, and the exchange of offense and defense produced continuous muffled sounds. When robbing the students, he only used his palms, mainly to control the situation. Now that he was fighting with Gao Wan, he no longer held back. Sometimes he used his fingers to dig his eyes, sometimes he stabbed his throat, sometimes he used the base of his palm to hit his chin, sometimes he used the edge of his hand to chop the back of his head, sometimes he used his knee to hit his crotch, and sometimes he used his elbow to stab his waist. Gao Wan broke out in cold sweat. Fang Yuan's every move did not leave Gao Wan's vital points. His methods were ruthless and ruthless, as if he wanted to kill Gao Wan. Gao Wan was only a mortal, not a Gu master. Although he trained hard, his vital points were still vital points. It was impossible for a mortal to turn their eyelids into steel. This was the limitation of a mortal's martial arts training. On the other hand, Gao Wan did not dare to kill Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was from the Guyue clan. If he killed Fang Yuan, Gao Wan would incur the wrath of the public. He would definitely be dismembered, and the Mo family would be the first to clean up the mess. Thus, his idea was to capture Fang Yuan alive. It would be best if he could make him suffer in the process. One side had misgivings, while the other had killing intent. On the battlefield, it was actually Fang Yuan who was suppressing Gao Wan. Chapter 35. Fang Yuan's temporary advantage would not last long. As the punches and kicks intertwined, he was already panting. On the other hand, Gao Wan's breathing was still long and deep. There was a huge gap between their stamina. At the same time, Gao Wan began to move. His body gradually heated up, and his punches became faster and faster. The numbness and sluggishness brought by the cold were gradually swept away, and he began to display the strength that he had trained for decades. Kid, you can't beat me. The clan rules state that you cannot use the Moonlight Goo in the academy. You are finished. Today, you are destined to become my prisoner. Gao Wan laughed sinisterly. He had a lot of battle experience, and he tried to use words to break Fang Yuan's fighting spirit. I am still a teenager after all. My body has not matured, and my quality is not as good as this slave. Fang Yuan's heart was like ice. After 500 years of training, how could his fighting spirit be shaken? The Moonlight Goo. His heart moved. He activated his primeval essence and leaped back, pulling away from Gao Wan. Gao Wan wanted to chase after him, but he suddenly saw a layer of blue light emitting from Fang Yuan's palm. His face immediately darkened, and he shouted, "Kid, you are using a goo to fight in the academy. That is against the clan rules." "So what if I am?" Fang Yuan laughed coldly. He studied the clan rules and was proficient in them, but it was never for the sake of obeying them. Immediately, His palm slashed towards Gao Wan. With a soft sound, the blue crescent blade flew towards Gao Wan's face. Gao Wan gritted his teeth and raised his arms in front of his face, forming an arm shield. At the same time, he did not stop and rushed towards Fang Yuan, intending to resist and end the battle quickly. The moonblade hit his arm, and with a puff, flesh and blood splattered under the moonlight. An extremely intense pain was transmitted to Gao Wan's nerves. Gao Wan was caught off guard and almost fainted from the pain. How can this be? His momentum came to a halt, and he was horrified to find that his 2 forearms had been cut open horizontally. Blood flowed out of the wound, and from the side, one could see the bloody flesh. Even the pale broken arm bones could be seen. Gao Wan was shocked. This is impossible. A rank 1 beginner moonblade can at most hurt my flesh. How can you cut my bones? Only a rank 1 middle stage can do this. Of course, he didn't know that although Fang Yuan was only a rank 1 initial stage Gu Master, he was a rank 1 initial stage Gu Master. But because of the liquor worm's refinement, there was rank 1 middle stage primeval essence. Under the activation of middle stage primeval essence, the Moonlight Gu's moonblades were naturally powerful, surpassing initial stage. Not good. There's something strange about this kid. Gao Wan was caught off guard and was severely injured. His fighting spirit was completely gone, and he made a prompt decision to retreat. Do you think you can escape? Fang Yuan sneered and chased after him. The crescent blade in his hand shot out continuously. Help! Gao Wan screamed as he ran for his life. His voice traveled far and wide in the silent academy. What's going on? Someone is calling for help. The voice alerted the nearby academy guards. It's a servant left behind by Miss Mo Yen of the Mo family. The guards rushed over and stopped when they saw the scene of the chase. This is just a servant. There's no need to protect him. Letting him stay is already giving face to the Mo family. We still need to be careful to prevent him from doing something desperate and hurting that Fang Yuan. The nervous guards surrounded them, but they did not make a move and only watched from the sidelines. If this servant called Gao Wan died, then he died. It had nothing to do with them. But if Fang Yuan died or was injured, then it would be their responsibility. Seeing this, Gao Wan's heart turned cold. He screamed mournfully, "We are all outsiders. You can't just watch me die." He lost more and more blood, and his speed gradually slowed down. Fang Yuan caught up from behind. His voice was as cold as ice, pronouncing Gao Wan's death sentence. Scream. No matter how loud you scream, it's useless. As he said that, he flipped his hand and 2 moonblades flew out. With 2 swishing sounds, the moonblades hit Gao Wan's neck. Gao Wan felt a chill in his heart, as if he had fallen into an abyss. The next moment, he felt his vision suddenly spin. He saw his feet, chest, back, and his neck that had been cut off. Following that, he welcomed complete darkness. Gao Wan was dead. After being beheaded by Fang Yuan's 2 moonblades, his head flew out. His body flew for more than 10 meters before he fell to the ground. Bright red blood gushed out of his neck like a fountain, dyeing the surrounding flowers and plants red. Murder! Fang Yuan killed someone. The guards could not help but exclaim softly. They witnessed the whole process with their own eyes, and their bodies trembled, feeling a sense of fear and terror. Fang Yuan was only a weak 15-year-old boy, but he killed a strong adult without any expression. This was the power of a Gu master. The outcome of the battle was decided. Fang Yuan slowed down his footsteps and slowly walked over. His expression was calm, as if he had just done something as trivial as eating and drinking. This expression caused the guards to feel a chill in their hearts. Gao Wan's head lay on the ground, his eyes wide open, dying with everlasting regret. Fang Yuan was expressionless. He lifted his leg and kicked the head away. The corners of the guards' eyes twitched when they saw this. Fang Yuan approached Gao Wan's body and found that the body was still trembling. Blood quickly flowed all over the ground, forming a small pool of blood. He looked at the wounds on Gao Wan's body, his face somewhat gloomy. These wounds were very deep, enough to expose the secret of his middle-stage primeval essence. Once this secret was exposed, it would quickly implicate his liquor worm. Once the liquor worm appeared, the higher-ups of the clan would naturally think of the flower wine monk. Thus, Feng Yuan had to keep this secret. But there are too many people who saw it. Feng Yuan glanced at the surrounding guards. There were more than 10 of them. He only had less than 10% of his primeval essence left, and it was impossible to kill them all. After thinking for a while, Feng Yuan bent down, lifted Gao Wan's ankle, and dragged the corpse back. "Young Master Feng Yuan, leave this to us." The guards endured the chill in their hearts and walked forward. Feng Yuan said respectfully. In this kind of respect, there was a clear sense of fear. Feng Yuan quietly glanced at the crowd. The guards subconsciously held their breath and lowered their heads. "Give me the knife." He stretched out his hand and said indifferently. In his commanding tone, there was an unquestionable power. The guard closest to him involuntarily handed over the knife at his waist. Feng Yuan took the knife and continued to walk. More than 10 guards were left standing blankly on the spot, looking at Feng Yuan's back. The sun rose from the east, and the first ray of light passed through the side of the mountain, shining into the school. The 15-year-old Feng Yuan's body was thin and weak, and his skin was pale. Under the light of the dawn, he walked unhurriedly. In his left hand, he held a shining knife. In his right hand, he dragged a headless corpse. As he walked, bright red blood was dragged on the greenish-black stone bricks. The guards looked at him in a daze, and a chill made their bodies stiff. The morning sun shone on them, but they did not feel a trace of warmth and light. Gulp. Someone's Adam's apple moved, and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Chapter 36. Did you guys hear? Feng Yuan killed someone. A student whispered to his deskmate. I heard that too. He really killed someone. His deskmate covered his heart with a pale face. Many guards saw it. Feng Yuan chased that person. That person wanted to beg for mercy, but Feng Yuan didn't allow it. He chopped off his head. Not only that, Feng Yuan killed that person. He didn't even let his headless body go. He dragged it back to the dormitory and chopped it into meat paste. Really? It couldn't be any more real. I came early this morning. I even saw the bloodstains in the cracks of the bluestone bricks. Aya, why would I lie to you? Just now, the school elder called Feng Yuan away because of this. The youngsters in the classroom weren't in the mood to listen to the lesson. They were all whispering to each other. Killing was still too foreign to this group of 15-year-old youths, and it was also very scary. Since young, they were under the protection of their families. At most, they only sparred with their fists and killed chickens and dogs. As for killing, it was still far away from them. Who did Feng Yuan kill? I heard it was a servant from the Mo branch. Hey, I know this the best. Last night, I saw with my own eyes that Senior Mo Yin from the Mo family brought a bunch of servants to cause trouble for Feng Yuan. It's the Mo family. Not good. The Mabe is in trouble. Many youngsters looked at Guyu Mabe. The Mabe sat on his seat with a pale face. He just got the news this morning. Feng Yuan actually killed someone. He even killed someone he was familiar with, Gao Wan. The Mabe was very familiar with Gao Wan. He was very active among the servants. He was good at flattering people. He also trained hard in martial arts. He was a capable lackey. A while ago, Gao Wan even sparred with the Mabe. He didn't expect to be killed by Feng Yuan just like that. Because of this, the shock and disbelief in the Mabe's heart was twice as strong as the others. Other than shock, there was also worry and fear. Facing a murderer like Feng Yuan, it would be a lie if the 15-year-old Mabe said he wasn't afraid. In fact, he was not the only one who was afraid. The other youths were also afraid. Feng Yuan had robbed them twice, and each of them had fought with Feng Yuan. I've actually fought with such a cruel murderer? I'm actually still alive. Many people patted their chests, feeling a wave of lingering fear. It was one thing for Feng Yuan to kill people, but the key was that he had dismembered the corpses and chopped them into minced meat. This was too cruel. Such a terrifying crime deeply impacted the innocent hearts of the youths. In the room, there were only the Academy Elder and Feng Yuan. The Academy Elder sat, while Feng Yuan stood. No one spoke, and the atmosphere was heavy and oppressive. The Academy Elder looked at Feng Yuan silently, a complicated light flashing through his eyes. Early in the morning, a guard reported to him about Fang Yuan's murder. This news made him shocked and suspicious. He was a rank 3 old Gu master and was also in charge of the academy, so he naturally knew what kind of battle power a rank 1 initial stage Gu master had. Fang Yuan could kill Gao Wan. It could be said that he had defeated the strong with the weak. In fact, yesterday evening, a guard had reported to him that Mo Yin had held Fang Yuan hostage and barged into the academy. At that time, he did not care, nor did he stop it. He was the academy elder, and his goal was to nurture future Gu masters, not to protect them. As long as there were no casualties among the students, he encouraged fights in the dark. Mo Yin came to find trouble with Fang Yuan, and he was happy to see it happen. Firstly, he knew that regardless of victory or defeat, the fight would be beneficial to Fang Yuan's growth. Secondly, he wanted to suppress Fang Yuan's limelight. Fang Yuan had blocked the academy's entrance twice, snatching away all the students. This limelight was too strong, and he had to suppress it. But he did not expect that Mo Yin would return empty-handed, leaving behind the family servant Gao Wan. And Gao Wan could not beat Fang Yuan, and was killed by Fang Yuan. In this world, strength reigned supreme. Killing someone was not rare, especially to Gu masters. It could be said to be an extremely common thing. But for a 15-year-old youth to kill someone for the first time, it was not simple. The academy elder still had a vivid memory of his first kill. At that time, he was already a rank 2 Gu master, 19 years old, and in a conflict, he killed a Gu master from the Bai family village. After killing the person, he vomited a mess, and his heart was in a mess. For a few days, he had no appetite and did not want to eat. He did not comfort himself when he slept, and the moment he closed his eyes, he would see the person's angry eyes when he died. Looking at Fang Yuan now, his face was calm as usual. Where was the panic? There was no discomfort, as if he had just slept the night before, and the one who killed someone was not him. Especially when the academy elder heard that after Fang Yuan killed the family servant, he did not let him go, and dragged the body back to the dormitory, chopping the body into meat paste to vent his anger. Such ruthless methods, it was terrifying to hear. So, at this moment, the academy elder looked at Fang Yuan with a complicated gaze. On one hand, he was shocked at Fang Yuan's indifference towards life, his heart as cold as ice. On the other hand, he admired Fang Yuan. He was born to be a battle seed. He had just mastered the moonlight Gu, and he could already use it to kill someone. Ordinary youths, even those grade geniuses, might not be able to do it. This was the talent of battle. If he was nurtured to fight for the family, he would be the enemy's nightmare. The third aspect was worry and distress. He was worried that after this incident, Fang Yuan's momentum would grow, and he would not be able to suppress him. This Fang Yuan was too daring. Not only did he violate the clan rules, he used a Gu in the academy, and even killed someone because of it. He had to suppress his limelight, or else how could he manage this academy? What was distressing was how to deal with the aftermath of this incident, since it involved the clan's Mo bloodline. Fang Yuan, do you know why I summoned you? The academy elder used a low voice, breaking the silence in the room. I know. Fang Yuan nodded. I used the moonlight Gu in the academy and violated the clan rules. According to the rules, this is the first time I violated it, and I should pay 30 yuan stone as a punishment. He avoided the main point and did not talk about Gao Wan's death. The academy elder was stunned. He did not expect Fang Yuan to answer like this. His face darkened, and he snorted. Don't try to act dumb in front of me. Let me ask you, what's the matter with Gao Wan's death? Fang Yuan squinted his eyes. Humph. Gao Wan offended his superiors, and his intentions were vicious. Last night, not only did he block my door, he also wanted to kill me. In self-defense, I had to use the moonlight Gu, and luckily killed the thief. I suspect that this person is very likely to be a spy from the other mountain strongholds. Family elder, please investigate this matter. The academy elder heard this and frowned, not knowing what to say. Now that Gao Wan was dead, Fang Yuan could say whatever he wanted. He was just an outsider, not a member of the clan. If he died, then so be it. The academy elder did not care at all. But he was worried about the Mo family's reaction. Gao Wan was a servant of the Mo family, but he died in the academy. He was in charge of the academy, and he needed to give the Mo family an explanation. After thinking for a while, the academy elder stared at Fang Yuan and asked, "Then let me ask you, how did you deal with Gao Wan's body?" Fang Yuan's lips curled into a cruel smile. "I chopped up Gao Wan's body and put it in a wooden box. When the sun rose, I placed it at the back door of the Mo family." What? The academy elder was shocked and almost stood up from his seat. Fang Yuan not only killed a servant, but also chopped up the body and placed it at the back door of the Mo family. This was a blatant provocation. To the academy elder who wanted to settle this matter, this was definitely a real nightmare. Fang Yuan was just a small rank Wengu master. What kind of reaction would the huge Mo family have? When the academy elder thought of this, he felt a headache. Things had already gotten out of his control. This Fang Yuan was really a troublemaker. Sigh, since it has already happened, there's no point in talking about it. You can leave first. There will be punishment in a few days. You better be mentally prepared. The elder was in a mess and waved his hand to let Fang Yuan leave. He needed to calm down and think of a solution. Chapter 37. At the same time, in the Mo family. What did I tell you? Look at what you've done. In the study, Guyue Mo Chan slammed the table and flew into a rage. Mo Yin stood in front of the old man with her head lowered. Her eyes were filled with shock and anger. She had just received the news that Gao Wan had been killed by Fang Yuan. That 15-year-old boy actually had such means and determination. Gao Wan was a servant of the Mo family. Fang Yuan killed him, which meant that he didn't respect the Mo family at all. Grandpa, don't be angry. Gao Wan was just a servant. It doesn't matter if he's dead. After all, his surname isn't Guyue. But that Fang Yuan is too daring. Even if he beats a dog, he has to look at the owner first. Not only did he beat our dog, but he also killed it. Mo Yin said angrily. Guyue Mochen roared. You still have the cheek to say that? You've grown up and don't care about what I said anymore, right? What did I warn you about? You've completely forgotten it. Your granddaughter doesn't dare. Mo Yin was shocked. She realized that her grandpa was really angry, so she quickly knelt down. Gu Mo Chen pointed outside the window and reprimanded, "Humph. It's fine if that servant is dead, but you still won't let go of Fang Yuan. You're so short-sighted and don't know what's important. Do you know what you're doing? It's their business to fight among the younger generation. As the elders, we shouldn't get involved. This is the rule. Now that you're looking for trouble with Fang Yuan, you're breaking the rule. Who knows how many people are looking at the Mo family as a joke now? Grandpa, please calm down. Anger is harmful to the body. It's my fault for dragging the Mo family down. I'll do whatever Grandpa tells me to do, but I can't take this lying down. That Fang Yuan is too despicable and shameless. First, he tricked me into entering the school. Then, he hid in the dormitory and didn't come out no matter how I scolded him. Once I left, he killed Gao Wan. This is extremely treacherous and shameless. Mo Yin reported. Oh, is that so? Guyue and Mo Chan furrowed their brows. This was the first time they had heard of this information. A glint flashed through their eyes. He took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. Stroking his beard, he muttered, I've heard of this Fang Yuan before. He composed poems in his early years and has early wisdom. Unexpectedly, his aptitude was only C grade, which made it difficult for him to be of great use. Thus, he gave up on recruiting him. Now that I think about it, it's quite interesting. After a pause, Guyue and Mo Chun knocked on the table with their fingers. Someone, bring that box over. There were servants waiting outside the door. Soon, a box was brought in. The box was neither too big nor too small, but it was a bit heavy. The servant carried it with both hands and stood beside the desk. Grandpa, what is this? Mo Yin asked curiously when she saw the wooden box. Why don't you open it and take a look? Guyue Mo Chun narrowed his eyes, his tone a little complicated. Mo Yin stood up and opened the wooden lid to take a look inside. Immediately, her expression changed and her pupils shrunk to the size of a needle. She could not help but take a big step back and let out an uncontrollable cry of shock. The wooden lid in her hand also fell to the ground. Without the wooden lid, The contents of the wooden box appeared in front of everyone. It was a pile of flesh and blood. These pieces of flesh and blood were obviously cut into pieces and placed in the box. Scarlet blood accumulated inside. Some were pale white flesh, and some were long intestines. There were even 1 or 2 pieces of bones mixed in, either leg bones or ribs. In the corner of the blood pool, there were 2 fingers and half a toe. Ugh! Emo Yan's beautiful face paled, and she took another big step back. Her stomach was boiling, and she almost vomited on the spot. Although she was a rank 2 Gu master and had gone through a lot of training and killed before, this was the first time she had seen such a disgusting scene. The flesh and blood in the box was obviously a human corpse that was cut up and stuffed inside. A strong stench of blood instantly filled the entire study room. The servant's hands were trembling and his face was deathly pale. Although he had seen this box and vomited, he still felt waves of fear and disgust when he held it. Among the 3 people in the study room, only Elder Guyue Mo Chen's expression did not change. He glanced at the flesh and blood in the box and said slowly to Emo Yin, "This box was placed by Feng Yuan at the back door of my house this morning." What, it's really him? Emo Yin was shocked and couldn't help but think of Feng Yuan's image. The first time she saw Feng Yuan was at the inn. At that time, Feng Yuan was sitting by the window, eating quietly. His face was ordinary, his eyes were dark, his body was thin, and his skin was pale like a teenager's. He was obviously such an ordinary and quiet teenager, but he actually did such a perverted and crazy thing. After the shock came anger. Emo Yin shouted, "This Feng Yuan is too arrogant. He must have eaten a leopard's guts. He actually dared to do this. This is a provocation to our Emo family. I'll go over now and bring him here for questioning." She was about to walk out. "Scoundrel, stop right there." Guyu Emo Chen was even angrier than her, casually grabbing a piece of inkstone on the table and throwing it out. The hard and heavy inkstone hit Emo Yan's shoulder and fell to the ground with a bang. "Grandpa!" Emo Yan held her shoulder and cried out. Guyu Emo Chen stood up and pointed at his granddaughter. He said agitatedly, "It seems that all these years of training have been in vain. You really disappoint me. To deal with a small rank 1 initial stage Gu master, not only did you mobilize so many people, you were also led by the nose by the opponent. Now you've been blinded by anger. Do you still understand the meaning of Feng Yuan's actions?" "What meaning?" Emo Yin was confused. Guyu Emo Chen snorted. "If Feng Yuan wanted to provoke us and make a big deal out of this, why didn't he place this box at the front door where people come and go? Why did he place it at the back door? Could it be that he wants to reconcile? No, if he wants to reconcile, wouldn't it be better to apologize in person? Why did he send this box of dismembered corpses? This is a provocation," Emo Yin said. Guyu Emo Chen shook his head and nodded. He wants to reconcile, but it is indeed a provocation. He placed the wooden box at the back door to reconcile. Putting dismembered corpses in the wooden box is a provocation. "Look," the old man pointed at the box. "This wooden box is not big. It can't contain a complete corpse. So there is only a part of the corpse inside. He wants to tell us that he doesn't want to make a big deal out of this and wants to keep the peace. But if the Emo family still doesn't let this go, he will throw the rest of the dismembered corpses at the front door and make a big deal out of this. When that happens, it will be a lose-lose situation. The whole family will know that the Emo family broke the rules first, and that the future leader of the Emo family is actually so weak that he needs to be pampered and protected by the elders." When Emo Yin heard this, she was momentarily stunned. She had never expected that Feng Yuan's move would have such a deep meaning. "This is a brilliant move," Gu Emo Chen sighed. "It is just a move, but it is a combination of strength and gentleness, and he knows when to advance and when to retreat. This simple wooden box not only shows Feng Yuan's intention to compromise, but it is also his threat to the Emo family. Unfortunately, he has really grasped our Achilles heel. If the Emo family's reputation is damaged because of this, the Qi family will rise in revolt, and the family head will attack us." Emo Yin did not believe in this. She said, "Grandpa, aren't you overestimating him? He's only 15 years old." "Overestimating?" Emo Chun looked at his granddaughter unhappily. "It seems that you have been used to having a smooth life all these years, and you have developed an arrogant habit. You can't see reality clearly. This Fang Yuan was calm in the face of danger, and he tricked you into entering the school. Then, he was quick-witted and hid in the dormitory to avoid trouble. He allowed you to insult him, but he did not try to be brave. This is tolerance and calmness. After you left, he immediately killed Gao Wan. This is determination and bravery. Now, he sent this box. This is obviously a clever plan. Don't you think I overestimated him? Mo Yin was stunned. She really did not expect her grandpa to admire Fang Yuan so much. She immediately said, unconvinced, Grandpa, he is only a C grade. Guyue Mo Chun stroked his beard and sighed. Yes, he is only a C grade. He has such wisdom, but he is only a C grade. It is a pity. If his aptitude is a little higher, and he is a B grade, he will definitely be the future leader of the Guyue family. Unfortunately, he is only a C grade. The old man's sigh was full of emotion. He seemed to be regretting, but also rejoicing. Mo Yin was silent. She could not help but think of Fang Yuan's image again. Under her psychological influence, Fang Yuan's originally weak and scholarly face was now shrouded in a layer of sinister and dangerous shadow. You're the one who caused this. How do you think we should deal with it? Guyue Mo Chun suddenly broke the silence and started to test Mo Yin. Mo Yin thought for a while, then said with a cold tone, Gao Wan is just a slave. It is fine if he dies. Fang Yuan is only a C grade, so it is a small matter. The key is to protect the Mo family's reputation. In order to settle this matter, we might as well kill Gao Wan's entire family to show the whole family that we uphold the rules. Yes, it is good that you can look at the big picture and temporarily put aside your personal feelings to protect the family's interests. However, this way of dealing with it is not appropriate. Guyue Mo Chun stroked his beard and commented, Please instruct me, Grandpa. Mo Yin bowed. Guyue Mo Chun thought for a while and said, This matter was caused by you. So Grandpa will punish you by confinement for 7 days. From now on, don't cause trouble for Fang Yuan. Gao Wan offended his superior, and a slave offended his master. He deserves to die. He should be punished. Because he is a slave of the Mo family, the Mo family is also responsible for not disciplining him properly. Compensate Fang Yuan with 30 yuan stone. As for Gao Wan's family, give them 50 yuan stone as an allowance, then kick them out of the mansion. He paused for a while and said, For the next 7 days, rest well at home and don't go out. At the same time, think about Grandpa's intentions in dealing with this matter. Yes, Grandpa. Chapter 38. In the sky, there were layers of dark clouds, and the spring rain continued to fall. The rain was as thin as a cow's hair, and as it fell, Qingmao Mountain was covered in a thin layer of smoke. The first floor of the inn's dining hall was still deserted, with only 4 tables of guests. Fang Yuan sat by the window, and a gust of wind blew, carrying with it a poetic and floral scent. The light rain on the heavenly street is soft. The color of the grass is nowhere to be seen. Fang Yuan looked at the window, softly muttering, before retracting his gaze. The table in front of him was filled with good wine and dishes, all looking and smelling good. Especially the green bamboo wine. The fragrance of the wine was mellow and fresh. The dark green wine quietly sat in the bamboo cup, and from this angle, it gave off a warm amber luster. The table closest to him was the grandfather and grandson. They were dressed in plain clothes, and were both mortals. The old man drank the rice wine while looking at Fang Yuan with envy. He was obviously attracted by the green bamboo wine, but did not have the money to buy it. His grandson was eating the braised beans, making crunching sounds in his mouth. At the same time, he was pestering his grandfather, shaking the old man's arm. Grandfather, grandfather, tell me the story of Ranzu. If you don't, I'll go back and tell Grandma that you came out to steal wine. Sigh, I can't even eat in peace. The old man sighed, but his face showed a loving expression. He used his bony hand to touch his grandson's head. Then I'll tell you. It is said that Ranzu gave his heart to the Hope-gu and escaped from the trap. The story of Ranzu was the world's most widespread and also the oldest legend. The old man's story was roughly like this. It was said that Renzu escaped from the trap because of hope, but he was old, without strength and intelligence, and could not continue hunting. Even his teeth had fallen out, and he could not chew on many wild fruits and vegetables. Renzu could already feel death approaching. At this time, the Hope Goo told him, "Human, you cannot die. If you die, your heart will be gone, and my hope will lose its home." Renzu was helpless. Who wants to die? But heaven and earth want me to die. I have no choice. Hope Goo said, "Everything has hope. As long as you grab the lifespan goo, you will gain a new lifespan." Renzu had already heard of the existence of lifespan goo, but he shrugged helplessly. When lifespan goo is still, no one can sense it. When it flies, it is faster than light. How could I possibly catch it? This is too difficult. The Hope Goo told Renzu a secret. Humans never give up hope. Let me tell you, in the northwest corner of the earth, there is a huge mountain. There was a cave at the top of the mountain. There were 2 goo worms, one round and one square, living in the cave. As long as you can subdue these 2 goo worms, there is no goo in the world that you cannot capture. Even lifespan goo is no exception. Renzu was already at his wit's end, and this was his only hope. He spent a lot of effort to find this mountain. Then, he braved countless dangers and climbed to the top of the mountain. At the entrance of the cave at the top of the mountain, he staggered in with his last bit of strength. The cave was so dark that Renzu could not even see his own fingers. Renzu walked and walked in the darkness. From time to time, he would bump into something, causing his head to bleed. From time to time, he felt that this darkness was vast and boundless, as if it was another world, and other than himself, there was nothing around him. He spent a lot of time, but could not walk out of this boundless darkness, not to mention subduing the 2 round and square goo worms. Just as he was in a daze, 2 voices came from the darkness. One said, "Oh human, you also want to capture us? Go back, even if you have strength goo, it is impossible." The other voice said, "Oh human, go back, we will not take your life. Even with wisdom goo's help, you may not be able to find us." Renzu fell on the ground powerlessly, gasping for breath. "Strength goo and wisdom goo have left me long ago. I do not have much lifespan left. I have nowhere else to go. But as long as there is a trace of hope in my heart, I will not give up." Hearing Renzu's words, the 2 voices became silent. After a while, they said, "I understand, human. You have already given your heart to the Hope Goo. You are saying that you will not give up no matter what." The other voice continued, "Since that is the case, we will give you a chance. As long as you say our names, we will be yours to use." Renzu was stunned. Trying to find 2 accurate names from the sea of words was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Moreover, he did not even know how many words were in the names of these 2 goo. Renzu quickly asked the Hope Goo, but the Hope Goo did not know either. Renzu had no other way out. He could only bite the bullet and say the names. He said many names, spending a long time, but there was no response from the darkness. He had clearly called the wrong names. Gradually, Renzu's aura became weaker. In this cave, he went from an old man to an old man. It was like the evening sun was gradually setting. Half of it had already fallen into the horizon, becoming the setting sun. The food he brought with him became less and less. His mind moved slower and slower, and he did not have much strength to speak. The voice in the darkness urged, "O human, you are dying. Let us let you go. You can use your last moments to crawl out of the cave and take a last look at this world. But you have offended us as punishment. Leave the Hope Goo here to accompany us." Renzu tightly held his chest, resolutely rejecting. "Even if I die, I will not give up hope." The Hope Goo was moved. It used all its strength to respond to Renzu, letting out a pure white light. Around Renzu's chest, specks of white light appeared. But this white light was too weak. It could not light up the darkness. It could not even cover Renzu's entire body. It could only light up his chest. Renzu, on the other hand, felt a new formless strength entering his body from the Hope Goo. He continued to speak, saying the names. He was already muddle-headed. There were many names that he had said before, but he could not remember them clearly. Saying them again wasted a lot of effort. His life flowed with time. Runzu did not have much time left. Finally, when he only had 1 day left to live, he said the word Jew. A sigh came from the darkness. A voice said, "O human, I admire your perseverance. You said my name. From today onwards, I will listen to your orders. But I can only be together with my brothers to capture all the goo worms in the world for you. Otherwise, with just my goo, it is not enough. So give up. You are already on the verge of death. You might as well make use of this world. Take a last look at it." Renzu, however, shook his head resolutely. He made use of his time and continued to speak, guessing the other goo worm's name. Time ticked by, and he only had 1 hour left. But at this time, he unintentionally said the word Jew. In an instant, the darkness disappeared. 2 goo appeared in front of him. Just like what the Hope goo said, one goo was square, it was called Jew. The other goo was round, it was called Goo-A. Together, it was called Rules. The 2 goo spoke together. "No matter who it is, as long as they know our names, we will listen to them. O human, since you already know our names, we will be used by you. But you must remember, it is best not to let other living beings know our names. The more that know our names, we will have to subdue them all at once. Now, you are the first person to subdue us. Tell us your request." Renzu was overjoyed. "Then I order you to capture a lifespan goo for me." Rules and Rules goo worked together and captured an 80-year lifespan goo. Renzu was already 100 years old. After eating this lifespan goo, the wrinkles on his face disappeared, his skinny limbs were filled with healthy muscles, and the aura of youth was once again emitted. He jumped up like a carp doing a somersault. He joyfully looked at his own body, knowing that he had once again become a 20-year-old youth. "We will stop here for today. Let's go home, my good grandson." The old man finished his story and finished his wine. "Grandpa, continue. What happened to Renzu afterwards?" The grandson did not give up, shaking the old man's arm. "Let's go. We will talk when we have time." The old man wore a conical hat and a raincoat and put a small one on his grandson. The grandfather and grandson left the inn and walked into the rain, gradually getting further away. Rules. Feng Yuan's gaze was eerie. He swirled the wine cup and looked at the green bamboo wine in the cup, feeling emotional. The legend of Renzu was widely spread in this world. Almost no one did not know of it. Feng Yuan had naturally heard of it long ago. But whether it was a legend or a story, the benevolent saw benevolence and the wise saw wisdom. Earlier, the grandfather and grandson had only treated it as a story, but Feng Yuan could sense the deeper meaning behind it. Like that Renzu, when he did not know the rules, he would fumble around in the darkness. Sometimes, he would stumble around, bumping into things, getting injured, and in a sorry state. Sometimes, it would be a vast expanse, falling into confusion, with no direction or goal. This darkness was not pure darkness or darkness. Strength, wisdom, and hope could not restrain it. Only when Renzu knew the rules, and said the name of the rules, did the darkness disappear, and Renzu welcomed light. The darkness was the darkness of rules, and this light was also the light of rules. Feng Yuan moved his gaze away from the wine cup and looked outside the window. Far away outside the window, the sky was dark and gloomy. The green mountains were endless, and the drizzle was like fog. Nearby, tall bamboo buildings appeared one after another, extending outwards. On the road, there were 2 or 3 pedestrians, their feet wet and muddy from the rain. If they were not wearing gray-green clothes, they were carrying yellow umbrellas. Feng Yuan concluded in his heart, this world is like a big chessboard. All living beings are chess pieces, moving according to their own rules. The 4 seasons have rules: spring, summer, autumn, and winter cycle in order. The water has rules, flowing to the bottom. The heat has rules, rising to the top. Humans naturally have rules. Everyone has their own standpoint and principles. Take Guyue village, for example. The lives of servants are cheap, but the lives of the masters are precious. This is the rule. Thus, Shen Shui wanted to climb up to the nobles and racked her brains to get rid of her slave status. Gaowan tried every possible way to win the favor of the masters, relying on his master's power. Towards uncle and aunt, he was greedy, wanting to swallow up his parents' inheritance. The academy elders mainly nurture Gu masters and maintain their own position in the academy. Everyone has their own rules, every industry has its own rules, and every social group has their own rules. As long as one understands the rules, they can see the situation clearly, get rid of the darkness and obtain the light, and deal with it with ease. Fang Yuan thought of his own situation and already had a plan in his heart. To the Mo family's leader, Gu Mo Chun, it is to protect the family's prosperity and benefits. Mo Yin looking for trouble with me is already breaking the rules, and to protect the family's reputation, he will definitely not make a move on me. He might even take the initiative to compensate me. Actually, the Mo family is strong, and with their damaged reputation, they want to punish me, and I will not be able to resist. But Guyue Mo Chun was afraid. He was not afraid that he would break the rules, but worried that others would follow him and start to break the rules. In a fight between the younger generation, if the elders interfered, the situation would escalate, and if it involved the higher-ups, it would be a huge threat to the whole village. What Guyue Mo Chun was afraid of was that in future fights, others would lay their hands on his grandson, Gu Mo Bei. In his family, he only has one son, and if he dies, what should he do? This kind of fear, perhaps even he himself does not know. He just subconsciously wants to maintain the rules. Fang Yuan's eyes were clear, and he was clear about this matter from beginning to end. Gao Wan was not Guyue, so he was an outsider, a servant. What was the big deal if the master executed a servant? In this world, there were many normal things. Fang Yuan had killed Gao Wan. Gao Wan's death was not the key was his master, the Mo family behind him. But this time, I sent a box of dismembered corpses. I guess Guyue Mo Chun will interpret it as a compromise and a threat. This is what I want him to understand. If nothing goes wrong, the Mo family will not pursue the matter of Gao Wan's death. Of course, if my aptitude is a grade higher, like IB grade, the Mo family will feel threatened. And even if their reputation is damaged, they will suppress me, this future threat. Fang Yuan laughed coldly in his heart. Strength can be relied on. Weakness can also be used. Although Fang Yuan was currently in the game, he was also a chess piece. But he was well versed in the rules and had the heart of a chess player. Ordinary people were mostly like Guyue Mo Chun or the Academy Elder, and they only knew their own rules. Different professions were worlds apart. Like Fang Yuan, who could see the big picture and was well versed in the rules, it was extremely difficult. To know the rules, one had to be like Ren Zhu, struggling in the dark and wandering around in confusion. At this time, strength, wisdom, and hope were not very useful. He had to spend time and experience it for himself in order to gain experience. Ren Zhu was able to say the names of the Gu, rules, and Gu because he spent time and tried countless times under the shroud of death. Fang Yuan was well versed in the rules because of his 500 years of experience in his previous life. Since his rebirth, he was confident that he could create a glorious future, not because of the spring-autumn cicada's reappearance, not because he knew many treasures in the mystic realms, and not because he had a grasp of the general direction of the future. Instead, it was the life experience he had accumulated over the 500 years of his previous life. Just like Ren Zhu, who mastered the Gu, could easily capture all the insects in the world, and Fang Yuan, who was well versed in the rules and regulations, could look down from above and see through the complicated affairs of the world. Or he could delve into a cocoon, or hit the nail on the head. I am proud and arrogant, coldly looking at the people of the world like chess pieces, following their own rules and moving forward step by step. Darkness is the darkness of the rules, and light is the light of the rules. And the reborn demon is already walking in the light. Chapter 39. May was the transition between spring and summer. The fragrance of flowers pervaded the air, and the mountains were green. The sun began to gradually show its warm side. Under the clear blue sky, white clouds floated like cotton. On Qingmao Mountain, the bamboo forest was still as straight as a spear, pointing towards the sky. Weeds grew wildly everywhere, and unknown wildflowers dotted the grass. When the wind blew, the weeds moved up and down, and the strong smell of pollen and grass assaulted one's senses. Halfway up the mountain, there were large numbers of terraced fields. Layer by layer, step by step, tender green wheat seedlings were planted, and from afar, it looked like a green sea. There were many farmers in the terraced fields, busy working. Some were cleaning the canals to divert water, while others rolled up their trousers and stood in the fields to plant seedlings. These people were naturally mortals with other surnames, as Guyue's clansmen did not engage in such lowly work. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of camel bells could be faintly heard in the spring wind. The farmers straightened their bodies, turning their heads towards the foot of the mountain, only to see a caravan, like a colorful long worm, slowly peeking out from the mountain path. It's a caravan. Yes, it's already May. The caravan should be here by now. The adults understood in their hearts. The naughty children gave up playing with the water and the mud in their hands, skipping towards the caravan. Southern border had 100,000 mountains, and Qingmao Mountain was just one of them. Every mountain was inhabited by a village, and the people maintained the village with their blood and kinship. Between the mountains, the forests were deep and serene, with steep cliffs and steep cliffs. The environment was complex, with large numbers of fierce beasts and strange goo worms. Mortals could not pass through it all. If a single person wanted to pass through these obstacles, they would need to be at least a rank 3 goo master. Thus, the economy was in decline, and trade was difficult. The main form of trade was the caravan. Only by forming such a large-scale caravan could goo masters form groups and have the ability to help each other, overcoming the difficulties on the way, and travel from one mountain to another. The arrival of the caravan was like a bowl of boiling water, suddenly pouring into the calm and peaceful Qingmao Mountain. In the past, they came in April, but this year, it's May. But he's finally here. The innkeeper heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the news. The inn's business was extremely slow in other months. They could only count on the arrival of the merchant caravan to bring them a year's worth of income. At the same time, he still had some green bamboo wine in his inventory, which he could sell to the caravans. Not only the inns, but the tavern's business would also flourish. The caravan entered Guyue's village, one after another. The one in the lead was a treasure brass toad. The toad was 2.5 meters tall and had an orange-yellow body. Its back was broad and thick, and it was covered in warts and bumps, like the huge copper rivets on ancient city gates. On the back of the treasure brass toad, a large pile of goods was secured with thick ropes. At first glance, it looked like the treasure toad was carrying a huge bag. A middle-aged man with a round, pockmarked face and a round belly was sitting cross-legged on the head of the treasure toad. His eyes narrowed into slits as he smiled and cupped his fists to greet the Guyue villagers around him. This person's name was Jiafu, and he had rank 4 cultivation. He was the leader of this caravan. The treasure toad hopped forward, and Jiafu sat on the toad's head steadily. When he hopped, his height was level with the window of the second floor. Even if he landed, he would be higher than the first floor of the bamboo buildings. The originally spacious street suddenly seemed narrow. The treasure brass toad was like a monster that charged into the forest of bamboo buildings. After the treasure toad was a big fat bug. Its eyes were like stained glass windows, bright and colorful. It was 15 meters long, and its body resembled a silkworm. But its surface was covered with a thick layer of black glazed leather armor. The leather armor was also piled with goods, tied with hemp ropes. In the gaps between the goods, goo masters were sitting, some old and some young. There were also mortals, all of them strong and healthy martial artists, following the black-skinned fat beetle as it slowly moved forward. After the fat beetle, there was an ostrich with colorful feathers, a hairy mountain spider, a winged snake with 2 wings, and so on. But these were only the minority, and most of them were toads. These toads were similar to the treasure brass toad, just that they were slightly smaller, about the size of a cow or horse. They carried goods and people, their bellies bulging as they hopped forward. The caravan zigzagged deep into the village. Along the way, the children opened their eyes wide, looking curiously, cheering and exclaiming. The windows of the second floor opened one by one, and the villagers observed closely. Some of their eyes shone with fear, while some waved their hands to express their warm welcome. "Brother Jia, you are a little late this year. It must have been hard on you." Guyuebo used his status as the tribe leader to personally welcome the leader of this caravan. Jiafu was a rank for Gu Master. If a rank 3 clan elder was in charge of receiving him, it would undoubtedly be a form of neglect and contempt. Jiafu cupped his fists, sighing. This year was not smooth sailing. We met a group of dark bloodbats on the way and lost many experts. And on Precipice Mountain, we met the mountain fog and really did not dare to go. Thus, we delayed a lot of time. Sorry for making Brother Guyue wait. His tone was very polite. Guyue village needed the caravan to trade every year, and the caravan also needed harmony to make money. Hee, it's good that you can come. Please, the tribe has already prepared food and wine. Let me welcome you. Guyuebo extended his hand in invitation. Tribe leader is too polite, too polite. Jiafu acted as if he was overwhelmed by the favor. The caravan arrived at Qingmao Mountain in the morning and camped at Guyue village in the afternoon. By evening, the surroundings of the village had formed a large area of temporary shops. All sorts of red, blue, yellow, and green tents were set up, and in between the tents, there were also countless small stalls. Night had fallen, but the place was still ablaze with lights. An endless stream of people poured into this place from the village. There were mortals, and also Gu masters. The children were jumping around in joy, and the adults also had a joyous expression as if they were celebrating a festival. Fang Yuan followed the flow of people, walking in and out of the tents. The crowd was bustling, surrounding the stalls in groups, or moving in and out of the tents. The surroundings were filled with shouts of hawking. Come, 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 let's take a look. High-quality blue sea cloud tea. Drinking this tea makes one feel as happy as a deity. Even if people don't drink it, feeding the tea goo is also cheap and delicious. One piece only costs 5 yuan stone. Brute strength longhorn beetle goo. When activated by a goo master, it can increase the strength of a bull. Don't miss it. Intimate grass. High-quality intimate grass. Look at the quality. It's as fresh as if it was just picked. 2 yuan stone per caddy. What a cheap price. Fang Yuan heard this, and his footsteps paused, looking towards the source of the sound. He saw an ostrich pulling a 2-wheeled cart. On the cart was a pile of pink-green grass. Every blade of grass was a meter long, very slender, and on average only the width of a fingernail. Some of the grass even had heart-shaped flower buds at the tip. Intimate grass was one of the supplementary food for goo worms, and its value was that it could be paired with some food to feed goo worms. For example, when Fang Yuan fed the moonlight goo, he needed to feed it 2 flower petals for every meal. If he mixed in an intimate grass, the moonlight goo would be full after eating a moon orchid petal. Intimate grass was only 2 yuan stone per caddy, and every 10 moon orchid petals were 1 yuan stone. With a little calculation, he knew that mixing in the intimate grass to feed the goo worms was more cost-effective. Half a month ago, I killed Gao Wan, and because I used the moonlight goo in the academy, I was fined 30 yuan stone. But the Mo family compensated me with 30 yuan stones, so it's not considered a loss. These days, I robbed twice, totaling a total of 118 yuan stone. But recently, I have been constantly using the refined middle stage primeval essence to nourish the 4 walls of my aperture. Every day, I have to use 3 yuan stone. In addition to the goo worms' feeding costs, my own living expenses, and the yuan stone that I continuously invested to buy green bamboo wine, I still have 98 yuan stones in my hands. Ever since Fang Yuan killed someone, his cruel and cold image was deeply ingrained in the students' hearts, and for a while, no one dared to challenge him. This made robbing much easier. Every time, only a small number of people dared to go against him. Fang Yuan calculated in his heart and shifted his gaze, continuing to walk deeper into the temporary shop area. At the intimate grass stall, a group of people surrounded it. They were all Gu masters or students, holding Yuan stone in their hands, fighting to buy it. It was not that Fang Yuan did not have the money to buy this intimate grass, but he did not have the time. If I remember correctly, that mudskin toad is in that shop. In my previous life, there was a Gu master who gambled on it on the first night, and thus made a huge profit. I have to hurry. I can't lose the big picture because of a small gain. Chapter 40. The deeper he went, the more prosperous it was. There were fewer small stalls and more big tints. There were red, blue, yellow, and green tints. Some were square, some were round. Some of them had 2 pillars at the entrance, while others had red lanterns hanging from them. Some were brightly lit, while others were dark. Feng Yuan looked around as he walked, and finally stopped in front of a gray tint. It's here. He looked up and saw that there were 2 pillars at the entrance of the tint. The pillars were engraved with a pair of couplets. On the left, show your courage, get the 4 seasons. On the right, show your skills, get wealth in all directions. In the middle, there was a horizontal line. Luck changes. That's right, this was a casino. This casino covered an acre of land and was already a large tint. Feng Yuan walked in. Inside the tint, there were 3 rows of counters. On the counters were pieces of amber or fossils. The small ones were the size of a palm, while the big ones were the size of a basin. There were also bigger ones, as tall as a person. Naturally, the counters could not fit them, so they stood on the ground. Different from the liveliness of the other tints, this place was quiet. There were Gu masters in 2s and 3s standing in front of the counters. Some carefully examined the stones on the counters, some picked up the fossils and rubbed them carefully in their palms, feeling the texture. Some discussed with their companions, and some discussed the price with the shop assistants. But no matter what they said, they spoke softly, trying not to disturb others. This was a gambling den. In this world of Gu, there were all kinds of strange and innumerable Gu. Gu worms had their own specific food. Without food, Gu worms could only last for a period of time before dying. But nature was cruel and merciful to life. If there was a lack of food, Gu worms had a chance of survival. That was to fall into a deep sleep and seal themselves. For example, the moonlight Gu, without the moon orchid petals, might seal itself. It would shrink its strength as much as possible, like hibernation, falling into the deepest sleep. At this time, its body would not only dissipate the blue light, but it would also turn from a transparent crystal into a gray stone, covered in a stone shell. As time passed, the stone shell would become thicker and thicker, turning into a stubborn stone. Another example was the liquor worm. If it sealed itself, it would form a white silkworm cocoon. It would curl up its body and sleep in the cocoon. Of course, this kind of seal dormancy did not happen to all Gu worms. The probability of it happening was very small. Under normal circumstances, Gu worms would not fall asleep but starve to death. Only a small number of Gu worms would seal themselves under certain circumstances. Some Gu masters accidentally obtained these sealed Gu worms on rocks or cocoons, awakening the Gu worms within. Some of them made a small fortune from this. Some of them had a meteoric rise, their lives ushering in a turning point. These situations happened frequently in the Gu master world. There were often rumors that were true or false, causing people to have wild and fanciful thoughts. This was the source of the stubborn stones in this gambling den. Of course, these stones were similar in appearance. He had to open it to determine if there really was a Gu worm hidden inside. For a small-scale gambling den like this, 9 out of 10 stones are solid, and there are no Gu worms inside. Even if there were Gu worms in the stones, they might not all be living worms. Most of them were dead Gu worms. But once they bet on a living Gu, under most circumstances, they would make a huge profit. If the Gu worm is extremely rare, then they would either have a meteoric rise, or they would be killed and robbed. Feng Yuan's heart was clear. He was very clear about the workings of this place. In his previous life, he had joined a caravan and worked as a worker in a gambling den. After a period of time, he even managed a gambling den that was bigger than this one. It was a medium-sized gambling den. He had cheated many gamblers, but also made a few mistakes, losing valuable Gu worms to others several times. Feng Yuan stood at the door for a while, his gaze sweeping around before he slowly walked to the counter on the left. Behind the counter, there was a shop assistant a few meters apart. There were both men and women. They had green belts on their waists. They were not mortals. They were all rank 1 Gu masters. Most of them were initial stage, some were middle stage. Seeing Feng Yuan come to the counter, a female Gu master closest to him walked over, a smile on her face as she said softly, "Young master, what Gu do you need?" Every stone on this counter was sold for 10 primeval stones. If it's your first time and you want to gamble a little, You can go to the counter on the right. The rocks there are only selling for 5 yuan stone. If you want excitement, you can go to the higher level counter in front. The rocks there are selling for 20 yuan stone. This was an experienced female gu master. She had been working in the gambling den for a long time. When she saw Feng Yuan come in, from his appearance, age, height, and other aspects, she guessed that he was a student. Those who came to gamble were all gu masters, not mortals. And students could only be considered as reserve gu masters. They had just started cultivating and were usually short on money due to feeding their gu worms. Where would they have the spare money to gamble? Students like this often came in to take a look, to broaden their horizons, and to seek novelty. Most of them only looked and did not buy. A few with good family backgrounds might buy one to give it a try, but they usually only bought the cheapest fossils. Thus, the female gu master did not look forward to how many rocks Feng Yuan could buy. Let me take a look first. Feng Yuan nodded at her expressionlessly, and then buried his head to look. In his memory, it should be this counter in this gambling den. But 500 years was really too long. Many things were very blurry, especially the 500 years of memory. It was a huge storage. Honestly speaking, Feng Yuan did not remember it very clearly. He only vaguely remembered that it was in this year. On the first night of the caravan's arrival, there was a lucky person who spent 10 yuan stone to buy a purple gold fossil. He opened the rock on the spot and obtained a mudskin toad. Then this gu toad was bought by someone, and he earned a lot of yuan stone. Feng Yuan looked for a while, his brows slightly furrowing. On this counter, there were over 20 fossils with purple gold luster. Which one was hiding the mudskin toad? Every rock here was sold for 10 yuan stone. Feng Yuan had 98 yuan stone on him now, and according to this estimation, he could buy at most 9. But in reality, it could not be calculated like this. Any risk and gamble had to be considered. Feng Yuan was no longer that kind of hothead, nor was he a gambler who thought highly of himself. Those who thought they were favored by fate usually fell under the hands of fate. I am alone, without the support of friends and family. I need to leave some yuan stone to support my life, and to buy food to feed the gu worm. He calculated slightly. With the basic guarantee, he could buy at most 7 fossils. This rock is decorated with purple gold, but it is flat like a cake. There is no mudskin toad inside. This purple gold is dazzling, but it is only the size of a fist. If there is really a mudskin toad inside, it should be at least 30% bigger. This purple gold fossil is big, but its surface is extremely smooth, while the mudskin toad's rock skin is full of holes. Obviously not. Feng Yuan continued to size it up, eliminating and filtering. After the gu worm was sealed and hibernated, the fossil formed was 1, and blocked most of the world's detection methods. The remaining detection methods were forceful and brutal, and once used, they would kill the dying gu worm inside. Thus, when gu masters chose rocks, they could only rely on guessing, experience, luck, and the occasional flash of inspiration. If not for that, this place would not be called a casino. Of course, in this world, there were all sorts of strange things, and it was possible that there were some extremely gentle detection methods that could let the gu master know if there was a gu worm inside the rock. Feng Yuan had heard of some rumors in his previous life, but after verification, he found that they were all rumors. Feng Yuan secretly thought, if there really is such a method, it must be a secret inheritance, and would only be in the hands of an extremely small number of mysterious people. It would not affect the overall situation of the gambling industry. It was better around Qingmao Mountain, but the further east one went, the more popular the casinos became. In the Baitu Mountain region, every village had a casino. In some of the larger villages, there were also large casinos. In the 3 villages famous for their stone gambling foresight, Boulder Village, Ancient Tomb Village, and Grey Whale Village, there were even larger stone gambling dens. These 3 large stone gambling dens each had a history of over 1,000 years. Even now, their business was still booming, and there was an endless stream of gamblers. There had never been any incidents of them being swept clean. Right now, the tent that Feng Yuan was in could barely be considered a small-scale casino. But if any other 15-year-old came here, they would definitely be dazzled by all these fossils, and even if they chose a fossil, it would be purely a blind guess. But Feng Yuan was different. First of all, he already knew a portion of the answer, so the range of choices was suddenly narrowed to less than 30. Of course, from these 20 over fossils, it was not easy to choose the only one. But Feng Yuan had 500 years of experience as a foundation. Relying on this solid foundation, he observed for a while and chose the 6 purple gold fossils that fit the criteria. He was 80% sure. The mud-skin toad was sleeping in one of the purple gold fossils. Chapter 41. I want to buy some stones. After choosing his target, Feng Yuan said to the female Gu master, "Newbie." The female Gu master immediately thought of this. No matter how bad a gambler is, if they want to buy it, they have to inspect it first. First observe it carefully, then rub the stone in their hands, feeling the texture and weight of the stone. After observing it for a while, if they feel something is wrong, the gamblers will give up. They will not immediately say they want to buy it. And people like Feng Yuan, who immediately say they want to buy, are undoubtedly newbies who are gambling for the first time. But although the female Gu master thought so, her expression did not change. Her smile was still like a flower as she softly asked Feng Yuan, "Then which one do you want to choose?" Feng Yuan pointed, "This one." The female Gu master immediately took it out. Feng Yuan pointed again, "This one." The female Gu master was slightly surprised. She did not expect this young man to buy 2 at once. Looks like this young man's gambling habits are more intense, she evaluated in her heart. But immediately after, Feng Yuan pointed again, "And this one, that one. I'll buy them both." The female Gu master was stunned, feeling greatly surprised. She could not help but size up Feng Yuan again. Looks like this ordinary-looking young man, his family background should be very good. Otherwise, how can a normal Gu master have so much spare money? Thinking of this, the female Gu master's smile became gentler and friendlier. She did not expect the young man in front of her to be a customer. This was an unexpected surprise. But Feng Yuan surprised the female Gu master again. He pointed to the furthest purple gold stone. "Right, and the 2 over there." The female Gu master's heart couldn't help but be slightly shocked. Which Guyu village's rich young master is this? He seems to be the successor of a branch family. If I can get close to him, maybe I won't have to stay here and work so hard as a shop assistant. Thinking of this, the female Gu master's smile became even gentler. Even her gaze towards Feng Yuan had a hint of charm. 6 stones, placed in front of Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan took out 60 yuan stone and handed it to the female Gu master without hesitation. His action of paying the bill immediately attracted the attention of other Gu masters in the tent. Someone is starting to gamble on stones. We watched for more than an hour, but we didn't dare to make a move. Now that someone is testing the waters, it's good to see. He's just a student. To be able to take out 60 pieces of yuan stone in one go, he must be quite wealthy. Looks like he's a real hothead. Is stone gambling that easy to gamble? I'm going to hit my head hard today. The Gu masters stood on the spot, discussing softly as they looked at Feng Yuan. "Sir, do you want to open the stone on the spot? Our casino will open the stone for you for free." The female Gu master gently suggested, her eyes sending flirtatious glances. Feng Yuan glanced around with the corner of his eyes, and an inexplicable smile appeared on his lips. He waved his hand, rejecting the female Gu master. "Purple gold is my lucky color. This is my first time gambling on rocks. It has great significance. I want to open the stone myself." The female Gu master's eyes shone brighter, thinking, "Such heroism. He is indeed a rich young master." She would never have thought that Feng Yuan could be said to have no relatives or friends in the Guyue village. He was like duckweed, without any backing, and had to rely on himself for everything. TSK. So what if you have money? I wonder which rascal is it, wasting his father's hard-earned money? This kid doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, who relies on lucky color to choose a stone. Sigh, this kind of behavior is simply throwing a yuan stone into the water and then smashing it into the water for fun. The gazes of the Gu masters in the tent dimmed. After confirming that Feng Yuan was a prodigal, their originally low expectations were immediately reduced to nothing. Some Gu masters even retracted their gazes, turning their heads and observing the fossils on the counter again. The changes in the surroundings did not affect Fang Yuan's state of mind at all. He was expressionless, silently mobilizing the primeval essence in his primeval sea and putting it into the moonlight goo. In the next moment, the crescent moon mark on his right palm emitted a water-like pale blue light. Fang Yuan used this right hand to grab a purple gold stone, holding it in his palm. Then he closed his fingers, slowly kneading and rubbing the surface of the fossil. The blue light flashed continuously, the light rippling like water. The purple gold stone became smaller and smaller, and large amounts of powdery stone chips fell from between Fang Yuan's fingers, falling onto the carpet in the tent. Good move, young master. The female Gu master seized the opportunity and immediately opened her mouth to praise. This young man, he isn't completely useless. He has real skills. Seeing this scene, the Gu master's eyes flashed with a trace of complex light. They had a whole new level of respect for Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan used the blue light to grind the surface of the stone. This was a subtle use of the moonlight goo. Usually, only Gu masters who had used the moonlight goo for 2 to 3 years could reach this level. With Fang Yuan's age and status as a student, it was very rare to be able to do this. Look, he is using our Guyue clan's unique moonlight goo. Some Gu masters discovered this and immediately felt proud, looking at Fang Yuan more pleasing to the eye. But this method is still too rough to use for cutting rocks. Some of the more experienced Gu masters shook their heads. The purple gold stone became smaller and smaller. At first, it could not be closed with one palm, but after a while, it shrunk to the size of a fist and was wrapped by Fang Yuan's fingers. The blue light became stronger, and the fossil became the size of a marble. In the end, only a pile of stone powder was left, falling onto the carpet and forming a small puddle. This was completely a solid rock. There were no Gu worms inside. As expected, unreliable. The Gu masters shook their heads. Young master, there are still 5 more purple gold stones. The female Gu master encouraged warmly. Fang Yuan's expression was calm, not the slightest bit affected. He grabbed the second purple gold stone and continued to grind it. But the result of this one was still a solid rock. There were no Gu worms inside. It was the same for the third one. One of the Gu masters said impatiently, "Stop looking. There is no need to gamble on a rock chosen based on color. If he can get a good Gu, I will eat all the stone powder on the floor." Someone laughed lightly. "Young master, don't be discouraged. Aren't there 3 more? You have only cut through half." The female Gu master exhaled, cheering for Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan grabbed the 4th piece, and when he grinded it to the size of a palm, he suddenly stopped. There is material. The stone material has changed. It is not purple gold stone, but a black ink color. Is he really going to catch a dead mouse with a blind cat? The surrounding Gu masters let out a soft gasp. "Young master, please be careful when you cut the rock. Don't move too much. The sleeping Gu worms are extremely weak. If you use too much strength, you will accidentally kill the Gu worm inside." The female Gu master did not expect such a situation to occur. She was stunned for a moment before cautiously reminding him. Fang Yuan's movements were much slower, and as he rubbed his fingers, the stone fell off with a sizzling sound. It was intermittent, no longer as continuous as before. The black stone powder fell, the stone became smaller and smaller, and Fang Yuan's movements became even slower and gentler. The stone powder on the carpet piled up higher, and the black ink stone core in Fang Yuan's hands was finally used up. Sigh, what a pity. It is only a stone in a stone. What a waste of my emotions. I thought there was really a Gu worm. You guys are too gullible. Is stone gambling such an easy thing? 10 out of 10 are empty. Otherwise, how can the shop make money? Young master, your luck is actually quite good. You got a stone in a stone on your first try. Normal people can't do it. The female Gu master used another method to console Fang Yuan, and at the same time, to prepare his heart for the following outcome. It was common for people to end up empty-handed from stone gambling. From her point of view, Fang Yuan was just doing it casually. The possibility of him choosing a Gu stone was close to 0. Fang Yuan smiled and did not reply, but took out the 5th piece. He carefully grinded it, and this time, in just 10 breaths of time, The purple gold stone surface was ground away, revealing a bumpy yellow mud ball. Chapter 42. Don't tell me it's a rock in a rock again. Seems like it. But it's weird. This yellow soil is wrapped in a hard purple gold rock. It should be smooth and round. Why is the surface uneven? The surrounding Gu masters were puzzled. Looking at the yellow soil ball in his hand, Fang Yuan's expression did not change, but his heart moved slightly. He continued to grind, and the blue light was like water, turning the soil into powder. In the powdery soil, there were many lumps of soil, falling onto the pile of stone powder at his feet. Don't tell me there's really something inside? Some Gu masters saw this and stared with their eyes wide open. It's hard to say. Some people's tone was uncertain. I feel like there's something inside. It seems like there's something inside, someone said softly. The yellow soil ball gradually became smaller, and when it was about the size of a palm, someone suddenly barged into the tent. Lad, take it easy. I, Jia Sheng, will buy this soil ball. Fang Yuan's hands stopped, and at once, the Gu masters in the tent focused their attention on this person. This person looked young, about 20 to 25 years old. He wore a golden robe, with a silk belt around his waist, and in the middle of the belt was a square jade piece. The jade piece had a horizontal jade rune, forming the rarely seen one word. Obviously, this was a rank 1 Gu master. 20 years old, and still a rank 1 Gu master. It seems his aptitude was not that great. But this person's status was somewhat special. Seeing this person, the Gu masters in the tent bowed and said in unison, "Subordinate greets second young master." Second young master? He called himself Jia Sheng. Could he be the half-brother of the caravan leader Jia Fu? That means this gambling den should be opened by him. But now that he interfered, it seems like he is breaking the rules of the casino. The Gu masters discussed softly. That's right. I am the shopkeeper of this shop. Little brother, so young yet you are gambling on stones. Aren't you afraid of being scolded by your family? I will offer 40 yuan stone to buy the soil ball in your hand. What do you think? 40 pieces of yuan stone is quite a lot, and there might not be any Gu inside. It's just that I'm in a good mood today, and since it's your first time gambling, I don't want you to lose all your money. Take it as me giving you some back. Jia Sheng quickly walked in front of Fang Yuan and said, 40 yuan stone? Fang Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly, squinted at Jia Sheng, and sneered. It seems that you want to forcefully buy the mud ball fossil in my hand? Forcefully buying was against the rules of the casino. Moreover, on Qingmao Mountain, you want to bully me, a person with the surname Gu Yue, in public? Hearing Fang Yuan's final words, the other Gu masters present could not stand still. They could not help but feel a sense of common hatred towards the enemy as they rushed towards Fang Yuan's direction. The way he looked at Jia Sheng also became unfriendly. Jia Sheng had thought that a 15-year-old boy like Fang Yuan would be easy to deal with, and that he would be able to move his heart with just a few words. He did not expect Fang Yuan's methods to be so good. With just a few words, he had fallen into a disadvantageous situation. Seeing the posture of the Gu masters rushing over, Jia Sheng's expression immediately changed. He changed his tone and hurriedly waved his hands. Little brother, you misunderstood. I am the shopkeeper of the gambling den. How can I destroy my own platform and break my own rules? Then how can I still do business in the future? Hee. I just saw that your mud ball was interesting, so I wanted to buy it. If you don't want to sell, then forget it. But if you don't have anything later, don't blame me for not warning you. Fang Yuan did not bother with him anymore, turning his head and concentrating on rubbing the mud ball in his hand. His movements were very slow, very meticulous. Often, after a while, wisps of dry mud powder would fall down. As he moved, a dormant Gu worm gradually appeared in front of everyone. Oh my God, there really is a Gu worm. He really opened a Gu. Are you kidding me? This kind of stone gambling can work? This young man's luck is off the charts. He actually used his luck to forcefully open a Gu worm. At once, the Gu masters exclaimed in shock. The female Gu master subconsciously covered her mouth, looking at this scene in disbelief. She had become a shop assistant and had been to many villages, meeting all kinds of people and many customers. but she had never seen such a dramatic scene. There really is a goo worm. Jia Jinsheng's eyes flashed with a cold light, his heart filled with hatred. He was narrow-minded and easily jealous. What he liked to do the most was to take advantage of others. What he hated the most was to be taken advantage of. He opened this gambling den and arranged a tight network of spies inside. Once a customer seemed to be opening a goo worm, he would get the news and appear, usually forcefully buying it. Right now, Fang Yuan was in his gambling den, opening a goo worm right under his nose. Jia Jinsheng felt his heart bleed. What he opened was a toad goo. It was yellow all over. Its belly was pale yellow. Its back was brown and bumpy, covered with warts that were unique to toads. At first glance, it was somewhat horrifying. It was not big, only the size of a palm. Holding it in his palm, it was like holding 2 or 3 eggs. Under all kinds of shocked, envious, and jealous gazes, Fang Yuan's expression was calm as he carefully mobilized his primeval essence, injecting it into the toad's body. Immediately, this toad was refined by him. Goo worms obtained from unsealing fossils were extremely weak. Not only did they have little strength left, their will was also muddled, without any ability to resist, and could be easily refined by the goo master. The toad goo was awakened from its slumber by Fang Yuan. It slowly opened its eyes, its belly slightly bulging as it softly called out, "Croak." Although this sound was weak, it caused the expressions of the people present to become extremely interesting. The difference in value between a living goo and a dead goo was huge. "It's a living goo." He opened a living goo. Someone rubbed his eyes, not daring to believe it. "This is a mudskin toad. Damn it, it really is a mudskin toad." Someone recognized the toad goo's identity, shouting excitedly, "This young lad is so lucky. Why don't I have such luck?" Someone sighed, his emotions complicated, containing envy, jealousy, and hatred. "Young master, congratulations. This is the most precious goo worm I've seen so far." The female goo master was so excited that her words were somewhat incoherent, her eyes shining brightly. "It's actually a mudskin toad. This is a rare rank 2 goo worm, worth a whole 500 yuan stone. Damn it, damn it. Someone actually opened such a goo worm in my shop. I've lost big, I've lost big." Jia Jinsheng's face was pale, staring at the toad. He had a strong urge to snatch it over, but he knew he couldn't. If he really did that, he would be seeking his own death. This was not his clan's village, but a foreign land, the territory of Guyue clan. Maybe I should offer a few dozen more yuan stone. Maybe he will transfer it to me. That's right, he's just a student. If I offer 100 yuan stone, I'm not afraid he won't be moved. Why didn't I do that? Jia Jinsheng was filled with regret. No, maybe this lad doesn't know what's good for him. Although he opened this mudskin toad, I should be able to suppress the price and buy it. Jia Jinsheng had a glimmer of hope in his heart. But the next moment, this glimmer of hope was mercilessly shattered by Fang Yuan's words. Fang Yuan stared indifferently at the mudskin toad in his hands, not caring about the exclamations of shock and admiration from others. He used a calm tone and said to Jia Jinsheng, "Mudskin toad, rank 2 goo worm, eats a caddy of yellow mud every meal. The more fertile the mud, the better. It is rare and is the main goo needed to refine the treasure brass toad. The market price is 500 yuan stone. Jia Jinsheng, do you want to buy it?" You actually know so much." Jia Jinsheng's lips trembled, almost speechless after such a blow. Fang Yuan laughed lightly and continued, "If you're not willing, then forget it. I'll sell it to others. I believe there will be people who will buy it." Hold on. I'll buy it. But can you lower the price a little?" Jia Jinsheng's face showed a bitter smile. Fang Yuan turned around and left. Jia Jinsheng quickly chased after him. Don't go. I'll buy it. Fang Yuan did not have any plans to nurture this mudskin toad. It was a rank 2 goo worm, and Fang Yuan was only at rank 1 initial stage. Although it ate yellow mud, Qingmao Mountain was covered in green mud, and it was troublesome to get food. Moreover, if he did not sell this toad goo, Fang Yuan would have to feed 3 goo worms at the same time with his own strength. Yuan stone consumption would increase, and the yuan stone he had now was not enough to feed them. Thus, Fang Yuan's goal had always been to sell the mud-skin toad and earn 500 yuan stone, earning a sum of money. 500 yuan stone, to a rank 1 initial stage Gu master like Fang Yuan, was already a huge sum of money. The transaction was completed quickly, and Fang Yuan transferred the mud-skin toad to Jia Jinsheng in front of everyone, and at the same time received 5 heavy money bags. Each money pouch contained 100 pieces of primeval stones. Fang Yuan's original wealth was 98 pieces, and after spending 60 in stone gambling, he was left with 38 pieces. This way, his wealth multiplied by several times, and he now had 538 yuan stone. Many Gu masters saw this scene with their own eyes, and their eyes turned red. Fang Yuan kept the 5 money bags in his arms and picked up the last purple gold fossil, walking out of the tent leisurely. "Young master, is this yuan stone not working?" The female Gu master blinked and looked at Fang Yuan's back, reminding him loudly. Fang Yuan turned a deaf ear and left the gambling den without looking back, leaving behind a group of stunned Gu masters, looking at each other in silence. Chapter 43. Waves rose and fell in the green-copper primeval sea, rising and falling. Above the sea, the liquor worm curled up into a ball, emitting a faint white mist of wine. A gust of primeval essence rushed upwards, straight into the wine mist. By the time it landed, half of it was gone, and the color was deeper. From the initial stage emerald green, it turned into the middle stage pale green. The middle stage primeval essence fell into the primeval sea, but it did not mix with the initial stage primeval essence. It was as if it was heavier, sinking into the bottom. The upper half of the primeval sea was initial stage primeval water, and the lower half was middle stage primeval essence. As time passed, the wine mist lingered in the aperture. Under the refinement of the liquor worm, the initial stage primeval essence gradually decreased, and the middle stage primeval essence gradually increased. It could be clearly seen that the middle stage primeval essence in the lower half was getting higher and higher, while the initial stage primeval essence in the upper half was dropping and rising. Fang Yuan refined the primeval essence while absorbing the natural primeval essence from the yuan stone, quickly replenishing the aperture in his body. Finally, 45% of the primeval sea in the aperture was completely refined into middle stage primeval essence. Thanks to the middle stage primeval essence, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to cut the rock 5 times in a row in the gambling den. Sitting cross-legged on the bed in the dormitory, Fang Yuan slowly opened his eyes. It was already late at night. After he came out of the gambling den, he did not go to any other shops, but went straight back to the academy. Although it was near the Guyue village, as a rank 1 initial stage Gu master, having 538 yuan stones was still too much. This was not only because these yuan stones were heavy and inconvenient to carry around. It also attracted covetous eyes and could endanger one's life. If a rank 1 upper stage, or even a rank 2 Gu master had evil intentions, with Fang Yuan's current ability, he would not be able to handle them. Money is just a worldly possession, and it is sad that people die because of money. It is laughable that many people in the world cannot see through this. The boat of profit carries many people, and also how many people sink. Fang Yuan's lips curled into a cold smile, looking at the gray yuan stone in his hand. A complete yuan stone was the size of a duck egg, but the one in his hand, because half of the true essence had been absorbed, had already shrunk a whole circle. Fang Yuan did not feel heartache at all. Everything has its pros and cons. He only had C-grade aptitude, and he had to use the liquor worm to refine his Zhen Yuan. Yuan stone consumption was several times that of his peers. However, it was also because of this that he was able to overcome his lack of aptitude. In terms of true cultivation progress, he could be ranked in the top 3. Fang Yuan put the yuan stone back into his coin pouch and took out the last piece of the purple gold fossil. He had bought a total of 6 pieces at the casino, opened 5 on the spot, and brought the last one back with him. His eyes shone brightly, and he activated the moonlight goo again. His 5 fingers rubbed together as he dissected the rock. Under the blue light, the purple gold fossil rapidly shrunk, and in the end, it was ground into nothingness, leaving only a small pile of stone powder on the ground beside the bed. Fang Yuan was not surprised. When it came to stone gambling, 9 out of 10 gambles were lost. Even if he had 500 years of experience, he could only lose 8 out of 10 gambles. The remaining 20% chance of winning was divided into dead goo and live goo. The dead goo did not have much value. As for the live goo, it might not be that rare goo. If it was really a live goo with great value, it would instead attract a fatal disaster. Fang Yuan's current cultivation was very low. He was at the bottom of the goo master hierarchy. If the mud-skin toad that he had just opened was not near the Guyue village, he might have been robbed by Jiajin Sheng. Gambling was never a way to get rich. Instead, many people went bankrupt because of it. This was not Fang Yuan's path of development. Although the last purple gold fossil did not have a goo worm, Fang Yuan was not disappointed. But Fang Yuan was not disappointed. Instead, looking at the pile of stone powder on the ground, he gradually smiled. That's right. His ultimate goal in entering the casino was this pile of stone powder. As for the mud-skin toad, it was just something he did in passing. He dissected the rock in private, and other than him, no one knew the true result. From now on, he could make an excuse and say that the liquor worm was awakened from this purple gold fossil. This was a great idea. First, no one could be sure what kind of goo was sealed in the fossil. Who would dare say that the liquor worm could not sleep in the purple gold fossil? This was completely possible. Secondly, he had a few eyewitnesses. Him opening the mud-skin toad must have left a deep and distinct impression on the goo masters in the casino. Thirdly, even if someone did not give up, he could attribute it all to luck. Luck was the hardest thing to understand. Even if someone suspected that this was the flower wine monk's liquor worm, with the excuse of luck, there was nothing they could do. In the dark room, Fang Yuan's gaze was gloomy. Blindly hiding it was like trying to cover a fire with paper. One day, he would be exposed. To get rid of the liquor worm, he had to take the initiative. This was Fang Yuan's style. Moreover, he had thought about it carefully. In the following cultivation process, he needed to expose the liquor worm. A rank 1 goo like the liquor worm is very precious to a rank 1 goo master. But at rank 2, it is no longer useful. Thus, if it is exposed, it will at most attract some attention. It does not affect the big picture, so it is not important. It is not like the spring-autumn cicada. If the spring-autumn cicada is exposed, I might die without a burial place. With 500 years of life experience, Fang Yuan had long since seen through people's psychology and understood it like the back of his hand. The flower wine monk's inheritance and the mud-skin toad. In my memory, these were the only 2 things that could be taken advantage of, and now I have picked them up. From now on, I can only rely on myself to cultivate step by step. Fang Yuan sighed and stretched his body, feeling a kind of fatigue. A goo master's primeval sea cultivation could not replace sleep. Fang Yuan pulled up the bedding and laid on the bed, his eyes still half open. Although there were more than 500 pieces of yuan stone hidden at the head of the bed, and many jars of green bamboo wine stored under the bed, he still felt a faint sense of danger. These 500 pieces of yuan stone was already a limit. Extreme prosperity leads to decline. Fang Yuan was clear that his primeval stone expenditure would only increase in the future, and most of his income came from extorting his classmates. He could already feel that the classmates around him had obvious improvements, especially in the recent extortions. Gue Mabe, Chicheng, and his brother Gue Fangjing. These 3 had great improvements in their fist and leg skills. In the past, they could be dealt with in 1 or 2 moves, but now they needed 5 or 6. After 3 or 4 more robberies, their fist and leg skills will be honed. They will challenge me one by one, and with my current stamina, I can't take that kind of continuous battle. 500 pieces of yuan stone may seem like a lot, but with my intense consumption of 4 pieces of yuan stone a day, it is actually not much. There are no more treasures on Qingmao Mountain, but the nearby Baigu Mountain has a secret inheritance left behind by a rank 4 righteous Gu master. But to obtain this inheritance is very troublesome. There is an important checkpoint that requires 2 people to work together to pass. Sigh, the main thing is that the flower wine monk's inheritance is too little, and I only got a liquor worm. There is still that image wall. Maybe I can sell it to one of the merchants in the caravan. As Fang Yuan pondered, his eyelids became heavier and heavier until he fell asleep. Chapter 44. The next day at noon, Fang Yuan went to the merchant district outside the village while he was eating lunch. Because they had to work during the day, there were not many villagers in the tents and stalls. Fang Yuan followed his memory and walked to the place where the intimate grass was sold last night. But he saw an empty handcart parked on the spot. Dragging the handcart was an ostrich. It stood proudly on the spot. Its body was as big as an ostrich and its appearance was like a chicken, but its back was bulging, forming an arc. A pair of wide wings were folded at its side, its colorful feathers bright and dazzling. The chicken's head was raised high, its bright red comb like an agate crown. Under the illumination of the sun, it shone with a lustrous luster. It seems I was a step too late. The intimate grass has already been sold out. What a pity! If I had bought a few kilograms of intimate grass, I could have saved a lot of yuan stone. Fang Yuan's footsteps paused for a moment before he left and continued walking inside. Come, let's taste the village's wine. There are over 100 types of fine wine here. There's the best lantern grass wine, the lingering 9 melody wine, the quiet and elegant Gu-Longjing wine, the sweet and sour flower stone wine, the mouth-watering 100 Springs Old Cellar, the rich and fragrant Drunken 3 Autumns. In front of a blue barrel-shaped tent, the waiter was shouting with all his might. Fang Yuan's gaze flashed. His interest immediately piqued. He turned around and entered this wine shop. The wine shop's facilities were very unique. At the innermost part of the tent, there was a long counter. A Gu master was guarding it. Behind him were tins of wicker basket-sized crystal ladybugs, clinging to the tent's cloth. The tent's floor was not covered with carpet, but directly exposed the mountain rocks and soil. In the soil grew a group of colorful mushrooms. These mushrooms were colorful, round and round, somewhat cute. Some were as big as a table, some as small as a stool. Around a table-sized mushroom, there were a few stool-sized mushrooms. These are true mushrooms, intentionally grown by a Gu master. They can absorb dust and turbid air, purifying the air, a type of grass Gu. Fang Yuan immediately recognized these mushrooms. He chose a small mushroom and sat down. The surface of the mushroom immediately caved in slightly, giving Fang Yuan the illusion that he was sitting on a sofa on earth. Young master, this is the wine list. What kind of wine would you like? A waiter came over. Fang Yuan looked at the wine list and found that the wine here was more expensive than the green bamboo wine. I'll have a glass of monkey wine, Fang Yuan said as he put down the wine menu. A cup of monkey wine. The waiter turned his head and shouted. At the counter, the rank 1 Gu master heard it and immediately bent down, taking out a bamboo wine cup from the counter. Then, glass in hand, he turned to face the tent behind him. On the blue canvas of the tent, there were dozens of large crystal ladybugs quietly clinging to the tent with their heads down and their tails up. It was like a decoration hanging on the wall of a tent. These crystal ladybugs were also a type of Gu. Their stomachs were hollow and were often used by Gu masters to store precious liquid. They were transparent, as if they were made of crystal. From the outside, one could see what kind of wine was stored in the round stomachs of the ladybug. The Gu master quickly found the crystal ladybug with the monkey wine in it. He placed the bamboo wine cup under the mouth of the ladybug and used his other hand to gently stroke the ladybug's crystal carapace. An extremely small amount of primeval essence flowed into the crystal ladybug's body. Then, the ladybug opened its mouth and a stream of wine flowed down, pouring into the bamboo wine cup. The wine splashed for a while and suddenly stopped. The Gu master placed the bamboo wine cup filled with monkey wine on the counter. The waiter outside the counter had been waiting for a long time. He carefully picked it up and walked a few steps, bringing it to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan only took a light sip. The monkey wine was a fruit wine. It was mellow and sweet, soft in the mouth. He did not drink again, but with a thought, he called out the liquor worm. The white and fat liquor worm turned into a white light, drawing a half arc in the air, and with a plop, it fell into the wine cup. The wine splashed everywhere, splashing on the mushroom table. The liquor worm happily rolled around in the wine cup, the monkey wine dropping at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a few breaths, the wine cup was empty, not a single drop left. "It's the liquor worm," the goo master at the counter exclaimed, his eyes shining. He was a rank 1 goo master, with only D-grade talent. He followed the caravan and worked in this wine shop. He wanted to travel while looking for opportunities. The liquor worm could refine primeval essence and raise a small realm. To a rank 1 goo master, it could be said to be an extremely precious goo worm. Wasn't this the opportunity he was looking for? "Young master, I wonder if you can part with your liquor worm?" He excitedly walked over, his face full of sincerity. Fang Yuan shook his head, firmly rejecting him, then got up and left. His purpose in coming here was to expose the liquor worm. He never thought of selling it. Young master, please wait. I am very sincere. Maybe we can sit down and slowly discuss." The goo master reluctantly followed Fang Yuan to the entrance of the tent, but Fang Yuan did not respond. In the end, he could only stand still, looking at Fang Yuan's back with great regret as he turned the corner and disappeared from his sight. Unknowingly, the sun gradually set, the crescent moon flying up. In the night, the moonlight shone like water, but was evaporated by the lights of countless shops. Tonight, the shops were crowded, and business was still booming. Fang Yuan was pushed forward by the crowd, all kinds of discussions unavoidably entering his ears. Shops usually open for 3 days and 3 nights. Tonight is already the second night. By the morning of the day after tomorrow, the caravan will set off again. So if we want to buy something, we have to hurry. "Yesterday I saw a golden belgu, sigh. It's too expensive. After haggling with the shopkeeper for half a day, it didn't get much cheaper. I'll go take a look tonight." "Did you guys hear? Just last night, a young man actually opened a mud-skin toad in the gambling den, earning a total of 500 yuan stone." Fang Yuan listened attentively and could not help but feel disappointed. He did not hear any news about the liquor worm. The liquor worm is only a rank 1 goo. It is very important to rank 1 goo masters, but to rank 2 and rank 3 goo masters, it cannot refine their primeval essence. So it is normal that no one paid attention to it. But the matter of exposing the liquor worm, I can't be too hasty. If I do it too pretentiously, I will be exposed, Fang Yuan thought to himself as he walked. At this moment, the crowd in front of him surged. Immediately after, Fang Yuan heard someone shout, "Come and see, there is a black-hearted shop, selling fake goo to our clansmen." Immediately, there were people in the crowd who were filled with righteous indignation. "Huh, something like this actually happened. Quick, go and see which shop dares to deceive our clansmen." Fang Yuan followed the flow of people. Following them, he saw a group of people surrounding the entrance of a large red tent, 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Some were looking curiously, some crossed their arms and looked coldly, but most of their faces were shrouded in a thin layer of anger. 2 people stood at the entrance of the tent. One was a young rank 2 goo master. Looking at his attire, he was obviously a goo clansman. The other person was a familiar face. It was the owner of the gambling den, Jiajin Sheng. The young goo master held a black goo worm in his hand, raising it up high and shouting at the surrounding people, "Clansmen, this is the person in front of me. Yesterday, he sold me a fake goo. He lied to me and said it was a black boar goo, selling me 250 yuan stone. But when I bought it and refined it, I found out that it was not a black boar goo. It was just the most common smelly fat worm." Jiajin Sheng laughed coldly. "Don't slander me. When did I say this goo was a black boar goo? What proof do you have?" The young goo master saw Jiajin Sheng's denial and was furious. Grabbing Jiajin Sheng's arm, "You unscrupulous merchant, you dare to deny it. You dare to lie to your Lord Guyue on Qingmao Mountain. Are you looking for death? Let go." Jiajin Sheng was also furious, swinging his sleeves and slapping the young goo master's hand away. "You want to cause trouble and extort money, but you don't know who you are dealing with. I'm not afraid of you. My brother is Jia Fu, a rank for goo master. What can you do to me?" "You." The young goo master stared angrily, but did not dare to make another move. The title of a rank for goo master had already scared him. "Apui." Jiajin Sheng spat on the ground. Raising his head and looking at the young goo master, letting out a disdainful laugh. You are the one who wanted to take advantage of me. Why don't you use your brain to think? The black boar goo can increase a goo master's strength from the root. It is such a rare rank 1 goo. Its market price is even higher than the liquor worm, usually selling for 600 yuan stone. You think you can buy a black boar goo with 250? Dream on. Bastard! The young goo master gritted his teeth, his face red and his body trembling in anger. His chest was filled with anger from the humiliation. The crowd was buzzing, restless and discussing, but no one dared to step forward. Jia Fu's title as a rank 4 goo master was like an invisible mountain, suppressing the crowd. This lad is too despicable. What an unscrupulous merchant. No wonder he dared to be so arrogant on Qingmao Mountain. So he is Jia Fu's younger brother. I heard they have the same father but different mothers. He himself is only a rank 1 goo master, but using this relationship to act like a tyrant in the caravan. What exactly is going on? Right at this moment, a loud and clear voice rang out. Jia Fu is here. The leader is here to settle the dispute. Everyone move aside. The discussion suddenly stopped, and the crowd quickly dispersed, forming a narrow passageway. A short and sturdy middle-aged goo master with a fat belly walked along the passageway and walked in. He wore a long-sleeve yellow robe. It was the leader of this caravan, Jia Fu. Lord Jia Fu, greetings. Even though the young goo master was filled with anger, he did not dare to show it. He forcefully held it in and cupped his fists towards Jia Fu. Jia Jinsheng stood on the spot, as if he did not expect his brother to come. His face turned pale and his eyes flashed with anger. This slight change in expression made Feng Yuan, who had been observing from afar, fall into deep thought. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.